161, 666. Thanks to my friend for the artifact. We have initiated the time reversal, but there is no response. The Necron Overlord's voice snapped through the bridge. The time technician froze, metal throat quivering with fear. Tomb scarabs working at the console slowed their skittering, as if afraid to anger their lord. How can it be ineffective? Cabuesa stepped to the control panel and took over. His obsidian eyes threw out green beams that braided into a spherical, holographic display. Ancient runes mixed with streams of data across the surface. He locked onto the damaged warships and punched the activation sequence. The time reversal device whined to life, spitting out strange spatiotemporal eddies. Cabuesa's sensors read them, and satisfied the device was fully engaged, he confirmed. Beams of time light shot out and struck the shattered Necron vessels. But the burning hulls did not reassemble. The temporal power failed to reverse their ruin. What is going on? He tried again. Nothing. The expression cut into his metal face hardened. This should not be possible. Around him, commanders muttered, confused. On the far side of the battlefield, the Imperial flagship Imperial Glory had locked onto the Eternal Lord. Fleet Commander Shia, calm and ruthless, drove the ship straight through the fighting. His guns chewed through any Necron vessel that dared block its path, reducing them to blazing wreckage. What had broken the Necron time reversal was not divine luck, but the warp. Sealing, the machine spirit, bound to Qin Yun, had used warp energy to sever the Necron time anchor points. She had cast warp blessings on the Glory's batteries, and that corrupting influence prevented time from knitting the Necron ships back together. The Glory's firepower was overwhelming. Necron vessels fell away before it like crumbling statues. Cabuesa tried the reversal again and again with the same result. His voice lost its earlier certainty. Perhaps their time anchors have been destroyed, he said. How could those lesser beings master time tech? Something else is wrong, a time technician protested. The power of that strange space can also do this, a tomb technician offered. The idea of strange extra-dimensional powers made Cabuesa's faceted mouth darken. The Necron long remembered the Old Ones and the magics they wielded. If another race had inherited that talent, it would blunt the Necron's edge. He thought of Pharaoh Setek and the Infinity Key that had returned the Necrons to the galaxy, how they had believed themselves unrivaled. Now a new inheritor of the Old One's craft made them vulnerable. We have lost our advantage, one commander said. Overlord, perhaps we should withdraw and regroup. Cabuesa pointed at the projection of the Solomon Hive world and the Infinity Key near its core. They were a hair's breadth from their prize. We must not abandon it, he insisted. Before he could finish, alarms shrieked. Our database has been infiltrated. Defensive protocols have failed, the tomb technician reported. The enemy is stealing our data. Cabuesa stared. The idea that humans or other lesser races could breach Necron systems was impossible until the data flashed on his screen. They had indeed been compromised. How did they do this? He demanded. He and his officers ran through possibilities, the Old One's heirs, an unknown force, but nothing fit. Then a voice on the console cracked, terrified. The human flagship, suspected Cetan energy signature detected. It's not a fragment, it's complete. A complete Cetan on a human ship. The bridge went still. The Cetan had been shattered and imprisoned in the wake of the Paradise War by Sarek, the Silent King. A whole one should not exist. Cabuesa shoved aside the technician and verified the reading himself. The energy signature was unmistakable. This human fleet must be in the Khitan's service, a commander said. We should withdraw. Cabuesa's logic clashed with caution. The Infinity Key was within reach. Stay and risk annihilation, or leave and lose everything. The bridge buzzed with terror, another alarm. The enemy flagship approaches. If we do not disengage, we will be trapped. Then, the defensive protocols have been breached again. They're trying to seize control of our combat units. Fear tipped the balance. No one could predict the motives of a Tan, only that it had an implacable hatred for the Necrons. The generals urged retreat. Cabuesa swallowed his fury and relented. Evacuate the battlefield. Necron vessels engaged their transspatial drives and withdrew. Damn, those scoundrels got away, one muttered. We were so close. On the Imperial Glory, Zealing's small projection pouted and beat a fist against a tiny chest. It's fine, Qin Yun soothed. There'll be other chances. Master, Sealing said, cheeks still puffed. We couldn't control their ships, but I did steal a lot of information. Qin Yun leaned over the data. The fleet belonged to the Hexos dynasty. They were here to capture Ahriman. He frowned. Why would they want Ahriman? He stole their time artifact, the Infinity Key, Shilling answered. A golden light screen pulsed up before Qin Yun, confirming everything. He had already begun to see the pattern of how the Corpse Emperor sent missions. If it favored humanity, he would flag it. Qin Yun, amused, mused that the Golden Throne had turned into a golden hamster, hoarding good things. Master, your players have sent requests, Shilling said. A projection popped up. The MC Dynasty wanted the Necron wreckage. Dora Workshop and several farming groups wanted to salvage it for new tech. The regional chat lit up. MC Myth, this game being so realistic isn't always fun. Why not like Stellaris, just click and investigate? Bald Donkey, after a fight, researching enemy wreckage to gain tech. Paradox move, no doubt. Old 13, Paradox, where's the starfish? Where's the starfish? Qin Yun refused the player's immediate claims and ordered the Adeptus Mechanicus to salvage the wreckage first. It was spoils of war and should be auctioned to the highest bidder. With the Necron fleet gone, he decided to seize the moment. He would personally go after Ahriman and, if possible, take the Infinity Key from him. If successful, he planned to taunt Ahriman in public chat with a 666, thanks, old friend, something to make the traitor's face twist in rage. Inquisitor Codden stepped forward to warn him. Ahriman is a cunning servant of chaos, saint. The Solomon Hive world may be chosen for a reason. It's likely a trap. Solomon was once a prosperous world alongside Scintilla, but now it is decayed. This planet has many inexplicable phenomena. Leave the arrest to the Inquisition. We will not fail. Qin Yun smiled, thanked him, but had no intention of stepping back. Too much blood has been spilled for my will. I cannot always avoid war. The Emperor's light shines on me. Whatever Ahriman plans, he will fail. Ahriman was a chosen of Tzeentch and a scion of Magnus, no ordinary man. But Qin Yun believed in his own luck and ability. If Shilling could study the Infinity Key's construction, humanity's grasp of time would leap forward, and they would no longer be mocked by enemies like Oricon the Diviner. A team of players and Imperial heroes boarded gunships and hurtled down through Solomon's gray haze. The Hive world was choked with industrial smog. Ruined, ornate buildings stood like ghosts. The psychic glow around Ahriman was so intense even the barely gifted could sense it. Imperial sensors had pinpointed him. Dozens of gunships descended, hatches dumped open, and players and Imperial troops poured out to encircle Ahriman. Qin Yun stepped from his exclusive gunship in golden armor, white wings unfurled, a weeping mask covering his face. Ahriman stiffened. You're becoming more like Sanguinius, he said. It seems the Corpse Emperor places greater faith in you. You didn't flee. Why did you stay? Qin Yun returned his calm. Ahriman, as composed as any 30-kilo-year legend should be, answered easily. Because everything is within my grasp. From your arrival to the defeat of the Necron fleet, to your standing before me now, everything is part of my plan. Codden shouted, You have nowhere to run, heretic. Ahriman smiled. Run? Why would I? The Inquisition opened fire. Bolter rounds screamed and detonated in a spray toward Ahriman, but they froze in midair. It was not psychic power. It was time itself. Arrested. A translucent crystal hovered in Ahriman's palm, rotating with a pale inner light. This is the power of time. Ignorant mortals, Ahriman intoned. You cannot harm me. He began to chant in an ancient tongue. Space folded. In an instant, the encircling force was ripped from the planet into a gray, ashen dimension, one that felt like the end of time or a warped mirror of Solomon itself. Ruined hive cities loomed on the horizon. White ash floated and piled in drifts. The air stung with the taste of burning. This place is the realm of dust and ash, Ahriman said, his voice calm. A reflection of holy terra left by an ancient race in this sector, independent of the warp and of the Corpse Emperor's power. He looked at Qin Yun with almost affectionate certainty. Here, you cannot draw upon the Corpse Emperor's light. In this place, you will never escape. P.S. I didn't rest well today, so I couldn't push out updates. I'm very sorry. I'll sleep well tonight and release more updates tomorrow. 30K era Horus's daily bragging, an internet meme. Chapter 162, Ahriman, who lost both his wife and his army. The sudden shift in the air made Kaiden and the others tighten their grips on their weapons. They scanned their surroundings, tense for any enemy that might emerge. The environment around them was an uncanny mirror of Holy Terra, only grayer and more decayed. White ash drifted through a sky pressed down by overcast clouds. The light of ship engines vanished into that murk. From somewhere beyond that ceiling came a low, rhythmic thud, like the heartbeat of something immeasurably vast. It was hard to imagine what could produce that sound. The realm of dust and ash? Qin Yun echoed Ahriman's earlier name for it, watching the Thousand Sons chief carefully. Ahriman, leader of the Thousand Sons, a figure comparable to the likes of Sigismund, Lorgar, or Abaddon, was nothing if not formidable. His calculations and preparations today were meticulous to the extreme. Even a Primarch might have been caught off guard. "I know all about you, Corpse Emperor Saint," Ahriman said slowly, hovering with ancient runes glowing around him. "I have watched you, speculated on you, probed for your weaknesses. Wisdom is the strongest force in this cosmos. It conquers everything. And I possess it. You are powerful," he continued, "but you are also limited. Many times you depend on the Corpse Emperor's power to defeat your foes, to appear invincible. Once you step into this place, you lose contact with the Corpse Emperor for a while. The Infinity Key prolongs this pause. It cannot last forever, but it is long enough to deal with you." Qin Yun listened, then nodded. "You mean your freezing time in a local field, pausing it at a moment. This was used during the Battle of Terra. I am honored to be on the receiving end of such a trick." Ahriman's lips twitched in what might have been satisfaction. Qin Yun, for his part, was unnervingly calm. That calm only rubbed salt into the wounds of Ahriman's confidence. The Chaos Sorcerer had prepared everything down to the last contingency. To see his captive so composed was an insult as much as a problem. "Stop playing coy," Ahriman snapped. "Today is your death. The Corpse Emperor can't save you." "That's debatable," Qin Yun replied with a small smile. "Wisdom is a form of power. Mine outstrips yours. And by the way, I have a god on my side." Ahriman's smile faltered into a sneer. "What arrogance! What god? I feel no warp presence near you." "Not all gods come from the warp," Qin Yun said. "You've been the presumptuous one." He raised his voice then. "Shieling." From behind him, a presence answered. The being known as Shieling floated up with slow certitude. Psychic power gathered in and around her. A dazzling halo bloomed behind her living metal body. Light poured from her eyes, mouth, and nose, a concentrated golden radiance like a handful of suns. She was a star god, bearing authority both of Holy Terra and of the Warp. Her potential was vast, enough to contend with the thing Ahriman had called forth. Ahriman's confidence broke. The smugness drained from him as panic took its place. He had known of Shieling in rumor only and had never guessed she would manifest here, aligned with the Corpse Emperor's chosen. If the Corpse Emperor's blessing was already a problem, a star god as an ally was catastrophic. "Shieling, deal with the thing in the sky," Qin Yun said. "Understood, Master," she replied, and transformed herself into a blade of pure light that shot upward to meet the colossal being Ahriman had summoned. The rift in the firmament widened. The rune in Ahriman's hand flew up and merged with a shape that obscured the horizon, a nightmarish behemoth whose writhing black body was studded with thick tentacles and cyclopean eyes. The largest eye was in the center, its lids drawn shut as if the thing slumbered, while the tentacles never ceased to thrash. Between those limbs, great pores exhaled a gray-white dust. The distant hive cities looked like toys against its bulk. "The Lord of Dust and Ash," murmured Kaiden, face hard. "It existed before humanity." "It is not one of the Ancient Four," another voice said, "but it is still beyond mortal reckoning. Defeated and sealed by an older race, it only wakes when the stars align." Ahriman chanted dark, ancient words. The creature's great eye opened, revealing an intelligence that was not malice so much as an all-consuming indifference, an ancient cognition that inflicted psychic scarring on anyone who looked into it. The ash on the ground spiraled into vortices and coalesced into grotesque, armed demons, an army born of dust. Among the assembled players and Imperial heroes, the players were practically vibrating with excitement. While Kaiden and the Inquisition men maintained grim focus, the players were ready to turn the place into a slaughterhouse. Old 13. This game copied P Studio and Cthulhu. Bold. Little Alpaca. Warhammer 42K Cthulhu crossover? Weak humans, tech upgrades, and outer gods. Sign me up. Warhammer has all the sci-fi toys other universes want. Emperor versus Blind Fish God. Who's number one? Not trying to start a fight, but the Emperor versus Azathoth? Really? Old 13. The Emperor is my son. Of course he beats the Fish God. Zhu Chang. Maybe he can only beat the Red King. Longsha. Korn would say the Corpse Emperor and I are even. The Warhammer cosmos probably evolved from Cthulhu myths. The Chaos Gods are universal. Imagine, ancient human priests learned of old ones and made the Corpse Emperor as a bulwark. He fought those beasts on Terra, then later led humanity into space as the warp menaced them. Du Zaugenbau, write that book. 10 days, no book. Shop smashed. Got it? Their chatter made the Imperial veterans smile despite themselves. Anything involving powerful foes brought out the player's inner orcs. Qin Yun nodded toward Ahriman. Interesting plan, interesting place. Ahriman's composure, already brittle, finally cracked. He shouted, "You're arrogant, and this will be your death." "You wound me," Qin Yun said mildly. "You forget that I have allies besides the Corpse Emperor." He gestured. Shieling hurled herself at the Lord of Dust and Ash and met a sweeping tentacle. The impact created a shock that threw up a storm across the planar realm. The ground trembled and fissures creaked open as God against Ancient Thing tore at the sky. "Help Shieling," Qin Yun ordered the players, then turned to Kaiden and the Imperial heroes. "Hold back the lesser demons and protect yourselves." The players activated their thrusters and leapt into the air. The Hunter-Demon battle group led the charge. Zhang Ge latched onto the creature's living hide, which was like walking on a swamp. He plunged his blade in, swearing, "In the name of the Corpse Emperor." Where he struck, the flesh hardened into white stone. The creature howled its displeasure. Shieling pressed the advantage, pouring psychic authority and star-born power into the strike. Because Ahriman had woken the beast before the stars could fully align, its power had not yet reached its peak. Facing a star god and a swarm of players, it found itself on the defensive. On the ground, Kaiden, Titus, and others opened fire on the Ash Demons. Xiao Pang's exoskeleton lacked thrusters. He could not join the aerial fight, so he manned his heavy autocannons and tore into the dog-shaped and hunched demons. The ash corpses shredded by his guns were blown away by the wind and reformed in the vortex, reborn nearly as fast as they died. "Damn! Resurrection!" he cursed as he continued to fire. Titus and his kill squad moved through the fray, targeting Thousand Suns sorcerers and the Red Letter Warrior mix to cut them down before they could escape. Above them, Qin Yun and Ahriman finally fought directly. Their clash was brutal. Ahriman chanted, twisting the warp's threads into attack, while Qin Yun, wielding the Staff of Divine Punishment and the Holy Judgment Blade, tore forward so fast he blurred. His blade slashed at the sorcerer. Ahriman had to drop his spell and block with his staff. Sparks flew as weapon met staff. The Staff of Divine Punishment had been charging with psychic energy. When the thunderous note came, that stored power exploded into a bolt of eldritch lightning. Ahriman was hurled like a cannonball, crashing to the ground in a sprawl of dust. "I've been waiting to return this favor, Ahriman," Qin Yun declared, swooping down to finish him. The Holy Judgment Blade gleamed. He aimed to split the Chaos Lord in two. A winged demon ripped across the battlefield and slammed into Qin Yun, carrying him aside. The creature bounced off and charged again. Its intervention bought Ahriman time. Ahriman's ally, a Thousand Suns sorcerer named Ctesias, rushed to his side and hauled him up. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I'm fine," Ahriman said through clenched teeth. Then his expression soured. "The plan failed. I didn't expect the Corpse Emperor Saint to be served by a star god. He had accounted for almost every contingency, but not for how a human could gain the favor and service of a star god. The game had slipped from his hands. Worse, the demon he had summoned to pin down the Corpse Emperor had been destroyed. The creature burned to ash and its soul cast back to the warp. Qin Yun's presence and Shiling's power shifted the balance. When the Corpse Emperor Saint strode forward, he moved like a walking judgment. Light enrobed him like a miniature sun. Every step shook the ground. He was coming to kill Ahriman, to deliver the Emperor's wrath for this folly. Red Letter warriors rushed to try and delay him, but they were cut down in flame and ash. No mortal or traitorous hand could stop the Corpse Emperor. Ahriman's pulse raced. The thought that he would die flashed through his mind. Then something else happened, something that froze even Ctesias. A blazing demon dove at the corpse Emperor Saint and latched on, an abomination born of warp fire. Its presence made the hair on Ahriman's scalp stand up. It was the red letter, the backwash of Ahriman's own red letter spell that had once doomed most of the Thousand Sons, the burning echo of their past transgression. That spell had left scars in the warp. It could not be allowed to be extinguished. If Ahriman died here, the karmic loop that had birthed that demonic echo would break, and that would annihilate the red letter itself. For a man like Ahriman, the idea of breaking such a destiny was unbearable. "Theseus, open the portal," he ordered. Theseus answered, and the infinity key left Ahriman's hand as he released the time lock. A shimmering warp gate formed. The Thousand Sons at the edge of the battlefield hurled themselves into it. Titus and his men redoubled their efforts, trying to prevent any traitors from escaping. An endless tide of ash demons blocked their path. Old 13, an ogryn of prodigious strength, plowed straight through the horde like a living tank. He let out a bellow and felled Ahriman and Ctesias with a single, crushing charge. The infinity key flew from Ahriman's grasp and rolled across the cracked earth. Ahriman blinked at the hulking figure looming over him. He had seen something odd, an ogryn bearing the imprint of Thousand Sons' gene seed. The sight made his eyes widen. This reality seemed to throw up stranger contradictions than even the warp on its worst days. Old 13 ignored Ahriman's muttered shock. He grabbed the sorcerer by the ankle and began smashing his head against the ground like a child with a toy. Bang! Bang! The world shook. Ahriman piled psychic wards around himself and suffered little physical damage, but his pride took a pounding. He could not reconcile being toyed with by one of his supposed blood brother's kind. Ctesias let out a psychic cry and unleashed a shockwave that finally knocked Old 13 back and freed Ahriman. Ahriman groped for the infinity key just as the red letter demon, shrieking, was pierced by the corpse Emperor Saint and turned to ash. The infinity key flew right into Ctesias' open hand. Together, he and Ahriman dove into the warp gate. Old 13 snatched a red letter warrior out of the way and roared in frustration as Ahriman vanished. If he'd held the Chaos Sorcerer, the points to be won and the glory would have been his. Qin Yun didn't pursue. He picked up the infinity key and turned it in his hands, amused. The device was one of those artifacts that even the Emperor might covet, though this one was unfinished. If it had been complete, it might have reversed time and space on a grand scale, a thing like the mythic Time Stone. In this universe, though, the infinity key was still divine-level hardware. Qin Yun had a plan. When the demons invaded Holy Terra proper, he would send in his own Imperium-grade specialists, his Doctor Strange of the Grey Knights branch, using the infinity key to reset and retry until they won. The Imperium would never lose under such a system. It would retreat, restart, and fight until victory. He stowed the key and checked the battlefield. Titus, Xiaopang, and the others were handling the ground threats well enough. He beat his wings and lifted into the sky to rejoin the assault on the Lord of Dust and Ash. Once the time lock was fully released, the Emperor's blessing returned to him, and his power surged. Joined by Zealing and the players, Qin Yun pressed the ancient thing down hard. Ahriman slipped away. The creature he dragged into this mirror world could not withstand the combined onslaught of a star god, Qin Yun, and the relentless players. Tentacles were torn off. The great central eye was forced open and then burst. The beast poured out a psychostorm and fled back into the warp when it could. The Solomon Hive world's mirror, deprived of its guardian, collapsed into a devouring vortex that swallowed everything. Qin Yun and the assembled force withdrew to Holy Terra just as the planar world imploded. Back on Holy Terra, a golden curtain of light descended, and a system prompt appeared in Qin Yun's mind. Congratulations. Level up. LV16, LV17. You have learned. Divine Omen. You are the embodiment of salvation, the incarnation of hope. When you appear before the masses in a divine posture, golden light will shine down, machine spirits will sing, the sacred number 13 will manifest, and sculptures of the Emperor and the saints will glow. Loyal warriors of the Imperium will receive blessings and enhancements. Traitors turned to chaos will be filled with fear and confusion. Note, Divine Stance continuously consumes faith points. You have learned, Machine God Incarnation. You will become the living manifestation of the Omnissiah. The machine spirit will sing for you and act according to your will. Note, Machine God Incarnation requires faith points. Before Qin Yun could fully process the upgrade, another golden curtain pushed the prompt aside. He frowned and muttered, half in jest, half in exasperation, "You've sat on the golden throne 10,000 years and you still can't wait a second? P.S. I didn't return it yesterday. I owed 2 chapters, but today monthly votes exceeded 1,500, so there's 1 extra, 3 chapters in total. I might update late tonight. I'll try to finish before 11. Working hard to keep the updates coming. Please keep supporting me." Today's bonus, Acute Sanguineous. Task, seize the Infinity Key from Araman, completed. Reward, Abundant Faith Points, issued. Infinity Key, Tier 1. Please return the item to the Praying Sanctuary and place it before the shrine. Don't be so hasty, always so impetuous. You didn't listen to all at all. Be patient, don't rush. Do you not know what haste makes waste means? Perhaps Qin Yun's inner thoughts had been overheard. The task notification flickered, as if embarrassed, then reluctantly switched to the upgrade screen. It switched several times before finally settling. Impetuous and a little petty, Qin Yun silently labeled the screen, then focused on the new skills listed. Divine Omen. He murmured, thinking it sounded like the phenomenon described in The End of Death when the Dark King ascended to godhood. At the end of the battle for Terra, the Emperor had left Makador on the Golden Throne, while he himself dealt with the traitors. To defeat Horus, empowered by the Chaos Gods, the Emperor devoured warp energy until he became a black sun radiating golden light. Whispers of the Dark King had spread across Terra, appearing in dreams, hallucinations, even from demons. This skill would be perfect for playing the God Act, Qin Yun thought. Hey, angelic descent. He pictured himself using it. It would be spectacular. Men and women, children and elders in every street would fall to their knees and worship. When he went to Baal, he could already imagine the sight. Those blood-sucking brats reduced to tears and wailing. The thought alone sent a thrill through him. Machine God Incarnation. He read the next skill aloud and stared, astonished. Wasn't this the signature trick of that impatient, petty, golden-clad recluse? He'd once hoodwinked the Mars tech priests with his machine, heal thyself. To be fair, the tech priests had completely fallen for it. If Qin Yun ever took Gilliman's place on Terra, this would be priceless. The moment Machine God Incarnation manifested, those oilheads would drop prostrate and hand over everything without a second thought. Thank goodness the oilheads weren't inclined to love and lust. Otherwise, Qin Yun shuddered to imagine dozens of female tech priests, huge, covered in tubes and gears, preserved by chemicals for millennia, gushing over him. That was beyond his tastes. Perhaps someone else might relish it, but not him. He felt nauseous just imagining it. Master. Zealing's voice pulled him back. He turned. Everyone was watching him. Sorry, I just had a flash of the future and was a little dazed. Qin Yun offered a casual excuse to cover his distraction. Ahriman and that demon escaped, and the mirror dimension was destroyed. There's nothing left here. Return to the fleet first. We'll hold a meeting later to discuss our next move. One by one, the others left, but Qin Yun called Kaiden over. Saint, Kaiden saluted. With the mirror dimension shattered, some demons might have slipped into Holy Terra. Keep Solomon Hive World under close watch to prevent lingering trouble, Qin Yun instructed. Kaiden nodded repeatedly. I understand, Saint. I'll arrange it. Also, Qin Yun added, thoroughly investigate the 7 great demons of the Calixis sector and locate them. If necessary, consult our allies back, wisdom and knowledge. I don't want any more incidents in the Calixis sector. Saint. Kaiden hesitated, then spoke. Say what's on your mind. Don't beat around the bush. Qin Yun looked at him. After all we've been through, have we not built enough trust? Lord. Kaiden steadied himself. I feel you trust the Eldar too much. They are Xenos, after all. There's an old saying from ancient Terra. Those not of our kind may have different motives. Do you trust your weapon? Do you maintain it and perform the rituals for the machine spirit? Qin Yun asked with a faint smile. Kaiden answered without hesitation. I trust my weapon. I maintain it diligently and pray to it every day. What if the weapon becomes corrupted, loses its usefulness, or even threatens you? Would you still keep it? Qin Yun pressed. Kaiden's face hardened. No, I would destroy it or break it into pieces and hide them where no one could find them. Qin Yun smiled wryly. The Eldar are that weapon. They can help us deal with the warp. While they are useful, we must cherish and maintain them. But one day, if they lose their purpose or become a threat, we must be ready to abandon or eliminate them without hesitation. He patted Kaiden's shoulder. The words sounded ruthless. Kaiden flinched as if Qin Yun had implied he, too, was only a tool. You are not, Qin Yun said softly, a shadow of sadness in his eyes. But thinking like that is correct. You, everyone, even I, we are tools for saving humanity. If one day I must sacrifice you to secure victory, I can only say I am sorry. And if one day you have to shoot me to save this civilization, I hope you won't hesitate either. Thank you for your honesty. Kaiden returned the Aquila salute. Saint, you deserve it. People like you will not shirk duty, even under the harshness of Holy Terra. Kaiden felt warmth at the sincerity in Qin Yun's voice, and a fierce pride burned inside him. As head of the Calixis sector, he understood the stakes. In the past, he had shed comrades' blood for the greater good. If one life could save 10,000, he would not hesitate. Should the day come, I will not hesitate, he vowed. I believe you, Qin Yun said. After arranging Kaiden's orders, Qin Yun returned to the Imperial glory. He went straight to the praying sanctuary and placed the Infinity Key before the Emperor's shrine. The key flashed and vanished, then reappeared a moment later. When he examined it, golden text scrolled before him. Name, Infinity Key, Tier 1. This is a powerful temporal artifact, still incomplete but potent. It can reverse time within a small area. Acquiring more time laws or creations will gradually perfect it. You have become a traveler of time. Why not embark on the path of adventure? Time is king among all paths in the universe. Young man, this is your cheat. Take it and conquer the world. Qin Yun stared. Such melodramatic lines couldn't have come from a neutral system. This sounded like the work of an ancient otaku. 40,000 years of existence and not a bit of taste change, huh? A new task window popped up. Task. Use the Infinity Key to maintain the Golden Throne's operation. After tens of thousands of years, the Golden Throne nears collapse. Many components are about to fail. Use the Infinity Key to reverse time on those components to keep them functioning and maintain the Golden Throne. Task reward, abundant faith points, 1 legendary grade item. Friendly reminder, time reversal cannot permanently change the Golden Throne. Finding a repair method as soon as possible is the wiser course of action. Truly the Emperor, always thinking ahead, Qin Yun murmured, using the Infinity Key for emergencies. He made a note to handle that task once he took charge on Terra. Master, everyone's in the conference room waiting, Sealing reported. Right, Qin Yun put the Infinity Key away and went to the meeting. In the boundless void, the crescent-shaped warship Eternal Lord floated in near orbit above a planet. Necron forces on the surface were withdrawing through a portal to the ship. The surviving humans hid in shattered ruins, peering through cracks as the metallic Xenos marched through the green-lit gateway and departed. Bewilderment and relief warred on their faces. They could not understand why a conqueror would abandon a world it had already subdued. Many Necron warriors were likewise puzzled. They had routed the lower races and occupied the planet, so why withdraw? But they could not defy the governing protocols. Orders were absolute. On the bridge of the Eternal Lord, the operation's supreme commander, Kobuesa, stared at distant stars. A human-like sadness glowed in his green eyes. I failed, he said softly, defeated by lesser beings. This is a disgrace. Temporary failure isn't the end, Anrakir, the commander's subordinate and personal guard, replied, trying to comfort him. Anrakir had not been at Solomon. His duty was procurement. He had believed that with their time technology, the Hexos dynasty would sweep the sector. At first, their campaign had succeeded. Time reversals routed the human empire and left nothing but flames and wreckage. Then, as the fleet seemed poised to crush the humans, they suffered a crushing defeat at Solomon Hive World. Morale collapsed. Worse, Kobuesa and other commanders had encountered a complete C'tan during the Solomon engagement. The C'tan had sided with the human empire and helped defeat Kobuesa's fleet. The Necron had no choice but to withdraw. If they lingered, they risked annihilation. Many Necron technologies tied to the C'tan were now compromised. With the humans aided by the C'tan, Necron systems were exposed. Core computing and database defenses became transparent to the enemy. If they didn't withdraw now, a counterattack could wipe them out. Kubuesa said nothing more, just gazing into the void. Anrakir turned, staring at his reflection in the observation glass, a glowing-eyed, skeletal figure forged from living metal with only shadowy memories of a flesh and blood past. The Citan had taken their flesh and souls and left these bodies, metal husks with memories. Bent lines and intersecting circuits on the dark walls shimmered with green. Once these were prayers and names honoring their betrayers. Anrakir's gaze lingered on the symbol of the Void Dragon. He had once knelt and given sacrifices to that deity. After the betrayal, he had hoped never again to live under its shadow. Yet now a young Citan had returned. When it matured, the Necrons would face a merciless enemy. They must reunite the dynasties, set aside past hatreds, warn others, and at all costs exterminate that Citan and the human empire to eliminate the threat. The Necron forces withdrew to orbit and departed. Their speed was so great that for a long time the surviving humans dared not believe they had truly gone. When they emerged and saw the sky clear, they cried out, "Long live the God Emperor!" When the Imperial Glory Fleet received word of the Necron withdrawal, relief and surprise rippled through the command. Some had expected more pitched battles. "I thought there would be a few more fierce fights," Shia complained. "If they'd held longer, I could have earned more merits." "It seems the Solomon battle scared them off," Ainge said. Players in the fleet's comms erupted. "I haven't even had a proper fight. They surrendered." "Necron foster fathers, where are you going? If you leave, how am I supposed to get merits? What about my debt? We're ready to fight to the death. Why did you run? Where is your pride as a higher race? You're scared of us humans and still dream of galactic dominance?" Low-ranking soldiers wailed. They'd been told the Necron were brutal. Bodies would pile in heaps. Surviving 3 hours made you a veteran. A whole day might make you a platoon leader. Many had written wills, broken off relationships, and sent their children to be raised elsewhere, all to follow the saint and earn a promotion. The result, victory without a scratch. Their resentment and disappointment burned. Harry, recently promoted to corporal, was annoyed. He'd studied tactics and prepared hard to perform well and climb the ranks. Now, no Necron to fight. When would he get promoted? Qin Yun, however, did not order a pursuit. Instead, he convened the fleet's high commanders and held a long planning session. After hours of analysis, they set their next strategic objective, driving the Tyranid fleet out of the Hazeroth subsector. Inquisitor Van Vegenes of the Ordo Xenos presented the intelligence. A disciple of the legendary Inquisitor Kryptman, Van Vegenes brought grave news. Another Tyranid fleet was approaching, vast beyond prior formations. Kryptman had been the first to identify the Tyranid and had dedicated his life to warning the human empire about them. He'd fought the Tyranids repeatedly, and during the Third Tyranid War had even tried desperate measures to delay the Leviathan fleet's advance, including creating a deadly blockade and scorched earth policies that amounted to unprecedented genocide. Stripped of his office, he nonetheless continued to fight Tyranid incursions by drawing them into other conflicts, buying Terra time. Van Vegenes named the incoming Tyranid swarm Cetus. The force striking the Hazeroth subsector was only a tendril of Cetus, deployed to test local defenses. "The entire galaxy is being probed. If we fail, the human empire will end, humanity will end, and even the galaxy may be lost," he said. The room fell silent. The triumph over the Necron was suddenly hollow. Grim faces replaced earlier celebrations. Endless war lay ahead. With a plan set, the Imperial Glory Fleet left Solomon Hive World and headed toward the Tyranid threat. Tyranid, this is a new opportunity. In a workshop aboard the Imperial Glory, MC Myth, who had joined the expedition, studied Tyranid data. A projection displayed a Tyranid unit with an oversized, highly developed head and withered limbs, the Hive Tyrant. It floated on psychic power and directed psychic attacks or relayed hive mind orders. The Tyranid's biotech is incredibly advanced. It'd be a crime not to study it, MC Myth thought, eyes on the projection. His mind raced through strategy. Dora Workshop had recently outbid his old company for the wreckage of a Necron warship, consolidating its lead in mechs and warships. The MC dynasty couldn't outcompete them in physical tech. The way forward was to find a blue ocean. After the AI rebellion, the human empire distrusted silicon-based AIs. Most computers used wetware, but human brains have limited capacity, so the empire faced a chronic shortage of computing power compared with a star-spanning civilization. If human brains could be evolved, augmented, and turned into reliable wetware computing platforms, that would solve the shortage. MC Myth saw a path. Instead of chasing Dora Workshop where they were strongest, his company would leapfrog to biotech and wetware, using tyranid biology as inspiration. It was risky, but perhaps the only route to pull ahead. Chapter 164, Asking for Leave, Staying Up Late. I had something on my mind and stayed up until dawn, unable to sleep. As soon as morning came, I knew I definitely wouldn't be able to write today. Consider it a day off. I haven't rested since the book went on sale. 165, Fight with Tyranids and Get the Thunder Beast mount. Request research into the Tyranids' evolutionary pathways to establish a complete biological technology system. Upgrade the Empire's wetware module and thinker system. Qin Yun glanced at the MC Dynasty's application and smiled. The players' ideas were always imaginative. The Tyranids were indeed the pinnacle of biological evolution. Harvesting their biotech to strengthen human thinkers and wetware was brilliant. Human brains, bound by biological limits, could never match silicon chips for raw computation, but if neural capacity and processing could be enhanced biologically, it might spawn an alternative intelligence tech. Approved. Qin Yun greenlit the MC Dynasty's project and planned to help them acquire the Tyranid Norn Queen and Hive Mind in the coming battles. Those two were key to any serious research into Tyranid biotechnology. An alert bell chimed through all channels. The Heavenly Elder's voice carried over the comms. We have arrived at the target area and are about to drop into Holy Terra. Players' chatter exploded. Little Alpaca, are we finally here? Time to go on a rampage? My loans. If there's no more fighting, I'm going back to the island to sell coconuts to pay off my debts. You could sell hooks instead. Who wants to sell hooks? Call my production company. We'll film it and split the profits 50-50. Hook literature still follows me. Haha, in this battle the MVP will definitely be our Emperor Numa battle group again. After the rotation, Warmaster, Shichi Lang, and many other players returned to join the campaign against the Tyranids. This was a golden opportunity for points they wouldn't miss. Xiao Peng, dream on. In ground combat, once the mechs are out, who can compete? At the peak of immortals, proudly standing, only with a Zaku can there be heaven. Old 13, magic is the true path. Everything else is just flashy garbage. Warmaster, Old 13, don't get ahead of yourself. While the players bickered, the warp tore open and the barrier between Holy Terra and real space split. Brilliant, shifting light poured from the rift. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and frigates spilled into normal space, immediately locking onto the bioships ahead. Macro cannon salvos, lance beams, and dense laser fire lit up the void. Bioships exploded one after another, turning into charred, ragged hulls that drifted lifelessly. A voice at Qin Yun's side reported, Master, ground forces say their void shields were destroyed and they're about to be wiped out. They request support. Shieling stood beside Qin Yun with the recent transmission. He ordered, form a wedge assault and rip open the swarm's defensive line. Get orbit and begin planetary drops at all costs. Qin Yun thought for a beat and gave his decision. With Shieling and the Imperial Glory present, the void fight was assured. The priority was the ground. Deploy players and Imperial forces to rescue trapped citizens and minimize casualties. Orders relayed, the fleet formed a conical assault with the Imperial Glory at the tip and drove hard into the swarm. The Tyranid numbers dwarfed the Imperial fleet, but only a portion could engage at any time without clogging each other's firing arcs. The Imperial fleet advanced relentlessly, massive kill counts at minimal cost. Once they reached low orbit, Qin Yun gave the command, planetary drop, commence ground operations. Phalian Star had once been a hive world of industry, factories lining the grand cities, machines roaring day and night to feed nearby systems. Now that prosperity lay in ruins. For Morrison, a corporal in the Mordian Iron Guard Regiment, this was a nightmare from which no one could wake. Morrison had seen greenskins in their thousands, cultists twisted by the dark gods, and unspeakable monsters in the dark. He didn't expect a tyrannid war when his unit was sent to suppress a local rebellion. The insurgents, led by a gene stealer cult known as the Pauper Prince, had promised liberation from imperial corruption. Many civilians, ignorant of what gene stealers really were, rallied to them. At first, Morrison's unit suppressed the cultists with doctrine and firepower. They fought in the hive's alleys, slowly cutting back the tide, even killing a patriarch. Then the Collin family, the sector's dominant financial house, betrayed the empire and demanded the garrison join the rebellion or be cut off. Morrison's commander ambushed and executed the surrender emissary and any wavering officers. Supplies were cut. The garrison was besieged, weakened by attrition and the tyrannid at the gates, until the swarm arrived. The psychers screamed first, tormented. Astropathic communications failed. Sleep became a horror of nightmares. Orbital batteries fell silent. Bioships crowded low orbit like scavengers over a feast, and soon the skies were choked with spore sacks. Defenses burned through entire magazines, pulse lasers and lances lighting the sky, ripping into the first waves of Xenos, but for every Tyrannid killed, 20 more poured forward like an ocean. Tyrannid hit the ground with a thunderous roar. Morrison and his comrades repulsed wave after wave, leaving mounds of corpses in their wake, but they were losing ground. Living structures of biomatter replaced concrete. Supply lines choked. The alarm screamed again. Morrison, exhausted and asleep for only a few minutes, injected a stimulant, grabbed his lasgun, and sprinted for the wall. Around him, soldiers wore the same haunted, frenetic look, stimulant flush on their faces. Heavy defenses flared. Thousands of cannons and towers roared. Missiles stitched brilliant trails through the sky. Autocannons kicked up sand. Shells bloomed into pillars of fire and settled under gravity. Defensive lances and plasma made the air shiver. The city turned into a furnace of energy. The tyrannid tide shredded and exploded under massed fire, but the enemy did not rely only on swarms. Living artillery, creatures hunched with biological batteries, spat bioplasma across the skyline. Giant biological shells slammed into void shields and rippled outward. When the swarm closed in, the commander barked over the comms, "For the Emperor's glory, fire." Morrison fired, bled, and kept moving, shouting the oaths and holding the line as long as they could. They beat back one wave, then another. Then worse news. Lictors and stealth units, assisted by gene stealers, had slipped inside the hive, targeting generators and central controls. The void shields faded. Flying beasts screamed as they dived. Most defensive fire sent charred corpses tumbling onto streets, but many Tyrannids still reached the ground to rip soldiers apart. When the last domestic defenses fell, the city collapsed into an orgy of slaughter. Civilians fled only to find the streets were consumed. Soldiers were cut down in buildings and alleys. Morrison and a dozen companions found themselves near a massive defensive cannon, its mech priest and servitors still keeping it firing. Morrison's squad protected the priests, doing everything they could to buy a few more volleys. They were all scarred and tired, prepared to die. Then engines roared. Gunships, stamped with the Imperial Aquila, streaked in. Missiles and multi-barreled bolters chewed up the swarm. In seconds, entire clusters of Tyrannid were blasted apart. Meteors, munitions from above, streaked down and smashed into the ground with earth-shaking crashes. "Reinforcements?" Morrison whispered, relief breaking his voice. "Is that an angel?" One of his neighboring men muttered, stunned. The mech priest looked skyward and intoned, half in prayer, half in awe. "By the gears and wrenches, an incarnation of the Omnissiah?" Morrison looked up and saw it. A burning sun of light appeared in the sky, carving a path through the Tyrannid cloud. Wherever it passed, swathes of the swarm were cut down as if by a sword. Even the players gaped, some with envy, as the guide, Qin Yun, went into his sacred form. Machinery roared, hymns sung, ethereal souls whispered to terrified soldiers' ears. The guide moved like a peerless war god, graceful and utterly lethal. "That's so awesome! When can we get wings or something?" one player demanded. "Put them on the marketplace. Sell wings. I want to kill in style." "Why is the NPC showing off? Players are supposed to be the protagonists. Clearly the dev team made this game for the guide. He gets all the cool stuff." Under the guide's charge and Xiling's support, the Imperial fleet tore through the swarm in space. The Imperial glory aimed and struck the Tyrannid hive ship dead center, shearing it in two. A hive ship formed the functional core of the hive fleet, a node for swarm consciousness, a factory, and a brain for the fleet itself. Destroying it would be a mortal wound. After the hive ship took the blow, Xeeling used her authority to twist local spacetime and pulled the damaged hive fleet into a dimensional rift. The tyrannid swarm had been beheaded. Without the hive fleet's guidance, the bioships panicked, many fled. Larger bioships tried to re-establish links to the swarm consciousness, but under Xeeling's interference and destruction, none could. The biofleet collapsed into chaos, and Imperial forces butchered them as they scattered. On the ground, the sudden breakdown of the swarm's coordination turned fearless attackers into fleeing bodies. The Imperial forces counter-encircled and crushed them. "This thunderbeast belongs to me," the War Master declared, eyeing a massive creature in the retreating mass. A thing that looked like an ultralisk from ancient human legends. Tyranids stored genetic codes of every species they consumed. At the right time, they reassembled and produced new forms, so their unit types far outnumbered other xeno-races. This thunderbeast was a heavy assault organism, exaggerated biocarapace, thick foreclaws, built as a battering monster. Now it fled, driven by blind instinct instead of swarm control. Shots and small bolts barely scarred its armor. It rammed ruins and crushed vehicles with ease. The War Master activated his propulsion pack, blasted skyward, and dove like a meteor onto the thunderbeast's back. He deployed a beast controller, a compact, spider-like probing device that burrowed through the carapace into the beast's flesh, searching for nervous centers and releasing corrective neural pulses in an attempt to rewrite its signal encoding. Neural core connected, rewriting biological signals. Estimated time, 10%, 3%, 65%, 66%, 67%. The thunderbeast howled in pain but kept running. 10 minutes later, at 100%, the creature collapsed, sliding across rubble. After a moment, it staggered to its feet, clumsy and uncoordinated, nearly falling. Then its movements smoothed. "Cool," the War Master shouted as he took hold of his new mount. Other members of the Emperor Numa battle group were busy too, capturing lictors and gaunts. Once disconnected from the hive mind, tyrannids became docile, grotesque pets, and more importantly, free weapons. With a beast controller in hand, they were perfect cannon fodder, expendable, plentiful, and free. Players from other warbands quickly joined the scramble, buying controllers and capturing bugs to use personally or sell. "This one's mine. That's mine. In the name of the Imperial glory, this belongs to us." The battlefield turned almost absurd. Instead of killing every tyrannid, players were corralling them. The Imperial glory's beheading of the hive fleet had left an astonishing number of live tyrannids on the field. Once freed from psychic control, they were cheap, obedient tools. Armies could field hordes of tyrannid suicide charges against chaos or xeno enemies, an intimidating and horrifying sight for any foe. Morrison watched the reinforcements' strange behavior with stunned disbelief. The monsters that had filled him with dread were now being corralled like livestock. These reinforcements were not like any friendly force he'd seen before. On another front, the MC dynasty was combing through the derelict hive ship. Inside, they found a main brain the size of a small mountain, neuronal patterns pulsing like stars. They also secured a Norn queen, a reproductive mother that analyzes acquired genes, expands the genome database, and finds optimal combinations to design and mass-produce new tyrannid units. The Norn Queen also adapted bioships for different cosmic environments. She was both commander and scientist, the core of a hive fleet. A live Norn Queen in human hands was unheard of. After 3 Tyrannid wars, humanity had never captured such a high-ranking specimen. The odds were vanishing. Xeeling severed the Queen's psychic connection to the Great Devourer, leaving her listless. "Install inhibitors at once. Whether the MC dynasty overtakes others will depend on her," MC Myth ordered. He signed massive loan agreements to obtain ownership of the wreckage and claimed the victory. They had hit a jackpot. As MC Dynasty celebrated, Xeeling interrupted Qin Yun. "Sage, abnormal warp fluctuations. A fleet is entering the system, orc forces invading the Calixis sector." Qin Yun ordered Xeeling to transmit all scanning data. After confirming it was an orc incursion, he immediately sent out emergency orders. "A fleet is entering Holy Terra, suspected orc forces. All units brace for combat status. P.S. Keep updating, keep pushing, brothers. Are your monthly tickets ready? Chapter 165. Orcs so defeated, they can't even wog anymore. I knew orcs were crazy, Dahai muttered, but I never thought they could be this crazy. He stared at the orc warband moving through the void. For someone who usually kept a serious face, he sounded almost plaintive. If anyone who knew Dahai back on Holy Terra had seen him now, they would have been astonished. He had grown up to be the archetypal career officer. Both parents were soldiers. His childhood was regimented. He went to a military political academy and then into the officer corps. He rose through the small merits of a steady career, captain by his 30s, on track for lieutenant colonel or colonel unless war or luck intervened. Games, idle reading, and frivolities had been forbidden. He had once been called an emotionless automaton by his classmates. If not for Warhammer OL's sudden rise and his selection for the reconnaissance program, his life would have followed that predictable path. Since the Wandering Port incident, Dahai had been compiling intelligence on the galaxy's races. He had thought orcs piloting ships patched together with scrap was ridiculous enough. Who would have believed it could get this much worse? Massive rock warships, hollowed meteorites, were being dragged out of the warp by orc barges. Each was fitted with orc macro cannons, rickety plasma drives, jury-rigged targeting gear, and whatever other bits the orcs could bolt on. Some of the meteorite hulks were packed with explosives and crewed by suicide boys. Once they saw an opening, they'd shout with glee and ram their ships into human vessels in a single, fiery wreck. The orc fleet was vast and crude, and in sheer numbers, it outclassed the humans, on par even with the tyrannid swarm they had just repelled. Had the hive fleet not been decapitated so swiftly, the flyleaf system might have become a chaotic three-way slaughter. "You'll get used to it," Tidu said with a laugh from nearby. "Orcs are the most fun-loving creatures in the galaxy. They don't care what happens to the universe." "Later, we should find a chance to board one," another player chimed in. "Isn't that too risky? The void is a mess right now. Jump in, and you might get blown apart by friendly fire along with the orc patchwork ships." "But where's the fun in waiting for them to come to us? I say we go to them." "I support boarding," another voice said. "As the old saying goes, the best defense is offense. With proper coordinates locked, we can teleport back if it goes wrong. And if it's worse, we can always use recall and return to the Imperial glory." Dahai listened and narrowed his eyes. The orcs truly seemed to be the happiest species in the galaxy. No, his companions sounded even more wah-wah than the orcs themselves. Hundreds of patched orc cruisers, small and fast, surged at the lead. They fired volleys of junk torpedoes and scrap shells first. The Imperial fleet's void shields absorbed much of the bombardment, and the Imperial glory replied. Though recently bloodied by combat and short on resupply, the fleet mustered its remaining firepower. Still, damage and dwindling munitions made it impossible to grind a quick victory. The engagement settled into a bloody stalemate. "Lock on target YX-42. Fire," Xia ordered calmly. Seconds later, the Imperial glory trembled as every deck powered up. Macro cannons, melta-beams, and plasma bombardment guns flared to life, outlining the cruiser in a blaze of light. An orc battleship took the brunt of it. Its power core detonated in a newborn star flash, tearing the hull apart and sending flaming wreckage arcing through the void. "Kills +1. A nearby servitor reported mechanically. Xia moved on to pick out the next target. Explosions flowered across the battleground. Fighters and capital ships alike were shredded. Bodies, both orc and human, drifted out of ruptured hulls into the emptiness. Casualty figures climbed on both sides. On the bridge of a leading orc rock hulk, Lion's Tooth heaved through the churning boys to the main viewport. He bellowed a single word, "Whack!" Then he pointed at the tactical projection, shoved aside other icons, and selected the largest target, Flyleaf Star. Bright lines wrapped the planet as he chose it. "Boys, we're gonna find some proper fights," he roared. "Whack!" Greg Locke, a grot, jumped and squealed in delight. Lion's Tooth glanced at him, scooped him up, and flung him across the deck. Greg hit the bulkhead with a hollow thud. Lion's Tooth roared again. The assembled boys cheered. In the pile of greenskins, another orc reached down and grabbed Greg's tiny legs to give him a shake. Greg screamed. The orc boy grabbed him up, then froze as a murderous aura locked onto him. He turned and saw Lion's Tooth looming, augmented with metal limbs. "Boss, what are you going to do to my personal grot?" the orc stammered. Lion's Tooth bent, plucked up the orc boy, and flung him against a far wall. The orc smashed to pieces and slid down in a slow curtain of gore. "My personal grot, Greg Locke, is not someone anyone can bully," Lion's Tooth declared, then tossed Greg again. The grot arced through the air and landed in a pile of cannon shells. Several mech boys sucked in breaths. By Gork and Mork, the shells didn't detonate. Greg picked himself up and cheered. Nobody dared mess with him now. Lion's Tooth turned his attention back to the battle. "Don't bother with Humies in the void. Let's land on their home base and take what's theirs. Gather up, charge, and seize their scrap. We'll wog until the planet's all ours." Under his command, the orc assault intensified. Orc guns were wildly inaccurate, but there were so many of them, and orc engineering ran on the "I thinks it works" principle. Imperial hulls were mangled, decks set aflame, and battered ships fell out of formation. Many patched meteorite hulks bypassed the faltering Imperial picket and leapt into Flyleaf's atmosphere. Orcs cared little for starships. They were tools for a wog. If they could take the planet, they'd have scrap enough to build more hulls and guns and walk harder. The sacrifices were meaningless compared to that. After ignition, the rock hulks screamed into the atmosphere. Plasma friction lit their bows. They slammed into the surface in thunderous detonations that shook the ground. Dust and smoke billowed tens of thousands of meters high, blotting out the sun. "They've gone mad," someone muttered. "As expected of greenskins. Are they even more extreme than us players?" another joked. "I'm starting to doubt my status as the fourth great scourge. I can't match the orcs' imagination," a third lamented. War Master and the players, organizing Imperial defense, watched the planetary strikes in horror and then snapped into action. "Release our assets. Time to test the results," War Master ordered. Shi Lang, Ning Baren, and other players brought out controllers and unleashed their captured Tyranids. Other units released biological slaves and controlled organisms. Dense swarms of Tyranids, some even whole node creatures, were marshaled. Where direct control failed, node implants and human will forced other Tyranids to act as living cannon fodder. The hive mind was replaced by the players' directives. The beasts rushed into combat, unafraid of death. The battlefield ignited. War Master brought forward a Thunder Beast mount and activated its flight thrusters, hovering above the Tyranid swarm. The creature's roar bent eardrums. "So inexplicably cool," Modison said from a distance, eyes wide with envy. The beast and its rider drew every gaze. Whether they would win was another matter, but in terms of spectacle, they had the field. "Brothers, to war!" War Master shouted, directing the Tyranids. "Kill! Kill!" Shi Lang leapt onto a captured Tyranid harpy and stood firm. Harpies were bioconstructs with armored skulls and hollow bones. Their agility rivaled fighter jets. Their abdomens held sacks of spore mines they could scatter like petals. Their screams could rupture eardrums or stop hearts. The Hive Fleet's flagship had been decapitated, and this harpy had fallen into Shi Lang's hands. Players mounted their respective rides and charged into the orc lines. The sight of bugs ridden by humans thrilled the orc boys. For a moment they gaped. Bugs and humans usually fought one another. Then envy replaced confusion. Those humies could make big bugs obey them. They wanted that too. The two tides met. Blood flowed like rivers. Corpses littered the ground. Lion's Tooth roared, hunting bugs and humans alike with a power claw and a massive bolter. Hormagaunts leapt at him, but were shredded by his claws and torn apart by his gun. Then the Tyranid behemoth stomped into the fray, each step cracking the earth. Lion's Tooth saw the War Master standing atop it and recognized him. He had thought the human dead. If he wasn't, then Lion's Tooth would kill him again. The two titans met in a collision. Lion's Tooth, bulked up by big mech augmentations into something like a Gorkanaut, charged with earth-shaking strides. The War Master and his Tyranid met him head-on. Their clash sent Lion's Tooth flying, and he crashed into the battlefield in a cloud of dust. The War Master used the moment, activated his jetpack, descended, and swung his sword. Lion's Tooth scrambled up and blocked with his claw. Metal rang on metal. This time, the War Master had the advantage. His swordplay had improved, and the Tyranid's weight and mandibles left Lion's Tooth outmatched. In a few brutal exchanges, the orc leader was impaled by the greatsword. The tyrant stamped, pulverizing the corpse until there was nothing left to regenerate from. Only when he was certain Lion's Tooth was truly dead did War Master raise his blade for the next target. "My boss, why are you dead again?" Greg Locke bawled, running from the wreckage to the cratered battlefield. He scratched his head and picked up one intact hand from the smashed wreckage. "He'll grow back, right?" Greg whispered to himself and bolted off toward the big mech, clutching the trophy. He planned to make someone fix his boss. Without Lion's Tooth, orc morale collapsed. Though they fought fiercely in the first waves, the Tyranid charge, backed by human artillery, became overwhelming. Orc formations scattered. The Wog dwindled to nothing. Big Mech Forkery, watching from orbit, saw Lion's Tooth's severed hand and panicked. Seeing the human's strength, he decided the fight was lost and retreated, taking the hand with him. The remaining orc fleet kept fighting, but as the Imperials received fresh reinforcements, the balance shifted. Under the Omnissiah's influence and the God Chosen's presence, the Calixus Mechanicus abandoned old procedures and restrictive dogma. They retooled production, optimized processes, and unleashed a suppressed productivity. Shipyards and foundries turned out war engines like domes from a mold, constant, noisy, efficient. New battleships streamed into the fleet, and the previously outnumbered humans reversed the tide. By the end, even the most crazy orcs realized they could not win. Qin Yun ordered decisive pursuit instead of letting them break off. Unlike his restraint with Necrons or Tyranids, he would not let the orcs live to breed in the wastes. Orcs were dangerous when left to settle and multiply. Their culture bred stronger war leaders in time. To stop future threats, they had to be destroyed now. Qin Yun didn't want to waste time. After expelling the orcs, he had to prepare support for Baal. On the surface, players from the Academy of Agriculture Battle Group rounded up different orc types to study. "I've waited for this my whole life," Mushroom said, eyes shining as he looked into a cage full of Gretchen. "If the old ones could make orcs, why can't I make vegetable people?" He rubbed his hands together at the thought of experiments to come. In the warp, in the labyrinth of 1,000 changes, Carlos watched the Calixus sector through a scrying crystal capable of viewing Holy Terra. His two bird-like heads wore expressions of utter despair. The Necron fleet had been routed, Tyranids were now enslaved by the God Chosen, and the Orc army was in full retreat, pursued by humans. His grand plan to unleash chaos had been foiled one by the Corpse Emperor before it could take root. Not only had his schemes failed, but humanity had gained wreckage and biological assets to harness for itself. The humans now pursued the orcs toward their stronghold, the Coronis Expanse. Worse, the God Chosen seemed to block his tampering, preventing him from introducing traps or seeding technology. "The more I interfere, the stronger he gets," Carlos complained to himself, pacing through the labyrinth's shifting halls. He turned his gaze to the labyrinth's deeper shadows and whispered, "My lord, is this part of your design?" After a beat, he convinced himself it must be. This must be the plan. My failures only play into the grand game. My lord must have ulterior motives. Let me be the variable. He fixed his face to a new determination. I'll keep dealing with him. The plan's imperfections had been exposed by the Eldari of the Usve Ark. Carlos vowed to give them trouble for their interference. Before he devised another scheme against the Corpse Emperor, he would send the Eldari a message, provoke him at your peril. On Prospero, Magnus returned from the webway to find Ahriman disheveled and defeated. The plan had failed. Not only had Ahriman failed to capture the Corpse Emperor, he had lost the Infinity Key. Once vigorous and scheming, Ahriman had become strangely taciturn. Magnus's single, burning eye took in the whole scene, and a terrible fury filled him. Learning that someone had used his legion's gene seed to craft a psychic Ogren, the Thousand Suns Ogren, Magnus's rage boiled over. They even used my legion's gene seed to make a psychic Ogren? Is this supposed to humiliate me? He thundered. Just wait. I will make that Corpse Emperor pay. Ahriman, voice low but certain, murmured, 3 years on the east, 3 years on the west. One day, the Thousand Suns will regain their former glory. 167. First War Master appears. The void was vast and endless, cold and black, as always. Today, though, something else bled into that darkness. Space itself warped. A tear opened in the curtain, and the warp's light burst through. A clutch of Orcs' ships, thrown off course by the unstable warp lane, were forced into the Holy Terra system. Imperial vessels bearing the Aquila emblem followed close behind. Before their void shields even rose, lances that had been building discharged their stored energy. Bright streaks cut across the black, striking an Orc vessel that lagged behind. The lance pierced patched-up hull and power systems alike. The struck metal glowed and flowed like molten iron. Atmosphere spilled into space, sucking Orcs toward the breach and ejecting them like seeds into the void. More lances converged, opening new wounds in the Orc ship. One struck the power core, and the entire hulk detonated, tearing itself apart into a blazing ruin. Bodies and wreckage tumbled outward in a grotesque spray. 30,000 kilometers away, on the bridge of the exemplar St. Fist battleship, the players burst into cheers. Dahai didn't join them. He simply watched the aftermath in the void and scanned for the next target. "Nova cannon ready, Captain," the weapons officer reported. "Lock onto enemy ship 3 ahead," Dahai said, sending the command and tapping the target icon on the holo display. A red halo closed around the Orc ship's symbol like a hangman's noose. The massive Nova array hummed as electromagnetic coils flared. The upgraded exemplar St. Fist, its speed, firepower, and defenses all improved, had a measurable advantage. Even the Orc ship's strange ability, the "I think therefore I am," offered little protection. The Orc formation, seeing comrades vaporized, tried to flee, trailing thick black smoke. The Nova shell hurtled out at near light speed, arced gracefully, and slammed into its target. The Orc shield failed to hold. The shell punched a concave crater into the patched hull. Heavy armor buckled and twisted. The warship detonated into a fireball. "Dahai, you're tearing it up!" Tidu yelled, pumping his fist. Other players cheered and grumbled in playful envy. Remarks about choosing to be a ship captain instead of melee characters floated through the bridge's chatter. Dahai's smile was small and private. When the engagement ended, no enemy ship had escaped. Charred wrecks and floating corpses stained the void, occasional sparks flaring like distant suns. "Set course for Mandeville Point," Dahai ordered. "Prepare to warp out and continue the mission." With the Orcs broken in the Phalian system, the guide ordered a wider counterattack. Orc forces scattered and regrouped, while Imperial fleets and ground units set about reclaiming planets and installations. On Proxima, the Hammer and Sickle battle group and the Hunter Legion were already clearing Orc-held ground. The Orcs had scavenged factory ruins and cobbled together a swarm of scrap Gorkonauts. The Imperial plan was simple: pound the landing zones, push troops down, and strip the Orcs' foothold. After saturation bombing smothered the drop zone, transport barges descended and disgorged shuttles packed with combat mechs and guardsmen. Orc fighters intercepted at the edge of atmosphere. Escort squadrons engaged in loud, blazing dogfights, streaking light and fire across the sky. Some shrapnel struck the transports, but all impacts were stopped by power shields. Aboard one transport, Xiaopang sat in the control throne of a Zaku Type 03. Heavy exosuit-clad guardsmen stood nearby. Mechanic priests moved along the deck, murmuring rites to soothe machine spirits and checking gear. Xiaopang's eyes were closed. Telepathic link cables threaded into his skull and limbs, integrating his nervous system with the mech. Data poured into his mind. Telemetry, weapon readiness, fuel levels. Millions of tiny inputs filtered through modified cortical tendrils until the Zaku felt like an extension of his own body. An explosion rocked the air. The Zaku's sensors relayed a tearing blast, an Orc fighter into scrap. The transport's point defense cannons shredded debris. The heavy hatch thudded open. The air hissed as pressure equalized. War horns raised a primal howl. The guardsmen were first to disembark in their powered frames, 5 to 7 meters tall, armaments bristling, meltaguns, plasma arrays, power lances. Xiaopang followed. The battlefield was a chaotic thunder. Gargants lumbered forward, Orc boys roared and smoking, red glowing bikes and rusty scrap constructs charged with reckless abandon. Whack! An Orc in a Gorkonaut bellowed and smashed into the line, sending several guardsmen sprawling. Xiaopang's Zaku activated its wrist emitter and threw a vibrating energy sword into being. An energy shield shimmered from its other arm. Bolter rounds and beams clanged against the shield. The Zaku ducked beneath a blast. thrusters venting blue flames as it burst forward, breaking the sound barrier. In a blink, the mech closed and the vibrating sword swept in a single clean arc, top to bottom, the Gorkanaut split in two, molten metal spilling from the seam. The lower half collapsed with dust and flame, while the upper torso hit the ground like a severed monument. Kills 1 flashed in the HUD. Xiaopang grinned. The Zaku Type to 3, born of Adora Workshop and Hammer and Sickle co-development, felt agile and powerful. Players had realized through combat that the best mechs were those they refined themselves. So they'd formed a warband research department to tinker and test. Dora built prototypes. The battle group stress-tested them on the field and proposed battlefield mods. Successful designs went to mass production. That collaboration had yielded nanoactive metal joints and improved power systems. True perfection, Minovsky particles and Gundam-level tech, remained a dream, but the material science in the Warhammer universe, even the fragments that survived, let them reverse-engineer surprisingly advanced rigs. Xiaopang daydreamed of piloting a Gundam, soaring through orbit, then folding into a fighter that transformed into a mech. A Viking-style jet promised a similar cinematic thrill: flip, transform, land, in one furious gesture. He barked a laugh and tore himself back to the melee as an orc's shell struck his shield, jolting him. He surged, leapt, and cut. The opponent detonated in a mushroom cloud. Nearby, Kale, captain of the Losrath Titan, watched with wide eyes from the bridge of his own machine. He was equal parts astonished and sour. The Zaku moved with flash and speed that made Keel wonder whether his own Titan could be tuned to that kind of elegance. "It's cooler than mine," he muttered, then scolded himself. Warhammer propriety demanded cathedrals and rites. Still, he resolved, when this fight was over, he'd study that mech. Orc forces, noisy and ludicrous in construction, were losing ground. Their ramshackle war engines, kilocans, death dreadnoughts, scrap Gorkanauts, smoked and glowed, but could not hold against coordinated Imperial assaults. Territory fell back into Imperial hands. The Orc tide thinned and retreated toward the Great Maw Passage, the fast route between sectors. The Imperials drove them through the passage and pressed into the Koronus Expanse, reclaiming the wandering port. That mission was assigned to the War Master. He landed with the Emperor Numa battle group and met a wave of Orc fury. "My heart is stone, unbreakable," the War Master intoned, then charged. Savage charge, his greatsword flashing as he cleaved through attackers. Corpses piled at his feet. A grot piloting a rambling kilocan swung a spinning circular saw toward him. Sparks flew as the War Master held the block. Bolters barked and severed a few desperate orcs, and the kilocan staggered. "I'm here," Titus said, appearing at the War Master's side. "Brother?" Grinning, the War Master plunged his chainsword through the kilocan's armor, tearing out the grot inside. Titus walked up, and between them, the two traded a familiar jibe and wager. Titus would leave the War Master his sword if he won the contest. The War Master accepted, amused and honored at the weapon's history. A Deathwatch relic called Friendship, 6 centuries old. They trusted fate and steel to settle it. With the wandering port taken, the Imperials pushed into the Koronus Expanse along the Great Maw Passage, expanding their foothold. Back on the command net, Qin Yun watched notifications and forum chatter until a mission completion pinged his console. Mission: repel the invaders of the Calixis sector. Completed. Faith value credited. Please visit the Praying Sanctuary to claim your Dark Word skill. "It's finally over," Qin Yun murmured, stretching away from his control panel and heading for the Praying Sanctuary. Players who saw him approached with greetings and favors. Others passed him by in indifferent silence. Qin Yun returned smiles, keeping the practiced neutrality of an NPC. "Praise the Emperor," he intoned as he entered the sanctuary atmosphere. Nearby, a new player shouted their dream. "I want to be the strongest chef in this universe," and then set off with companions toward the menagerie, eager to gather ingredients and tempted by the promise of charcoal-grilled black goat. Qin Yun watched them go with a complicated expression and a thin, private worry that some enthused player might mistake a black goat youngling for a recipe ingredient. The universe's freedom was admirable, but dangerous in small, absurd ways. He stepped through the sanctuary's threshold and into the city of dust. Marble colonnades, grand arches, fragrant gardens, and sunlit forums spread before him, The black sun hung above, untouched, a familiar, solemn sky. He thought back to the time he'd impersonated the Emperor's account and the intoxicating little high it had given him. He'd wanted, briefly, to strike at corn. The memory made him smile ruefully. "Child." The voice came from nearby, worn and dry as old leather. Qin Yun turned. A weathered old soldier stood there in a faded uniform. No Valdor, no Macador. The man's eyes held too much past to be recent. "You are?" Qin Yun asked. "A forgotten dead man," the old soldier replied. "If you must put a name on me, call me Ol." Recognition hit like a struck bell. Qin Yun felt his heart skip. Ol person, the oldest man, the first war master? The old soldier's mouth twitched at the question, but did not deny it. "It seems you know me." Ol walked up to Qin Yun and studied him from head to toe. Another brand new plan. Another choice. Qin Yun felt that familiar unease coil in his gut. He just hoped this one wouldn't end in the same kind of mess as last time. If it did, no, it wouldn't. This had to be the last time, whatever the outcome. Who wouldn't know you? Qin Yun widened his eyes as he looked at all. In the Emperor's history, who could compare to Macador? For the Emperor, his white moonlight had been all person. For all his legend, all looked startlingly ordinary. An unremarkable face, no obvious psychic power, no obvious command of the dark word. How he had become a war master was a mystery. Some rumors said he merely courted death with his immortality. The unreliable accounts Qin Yun had heard claimed Ol was born in 15,000 BC, several millennia before the Emperor, who was born in 8,000 BC, making him one of the oldest immortals. He had appeared at many of humanity's wars. His greatest deed was tied to the Tower of Babel, where he had once stabbed the Emperor to prevent the abuse of the dark word. The tower had been destroyed. From that day, the two men went their separate ways. By the 31st millennium, Ol had retired as a private in the Imperial Expeditionary Force. His pension bought him land. He used it to acquire 20 hectares on Kus and lived there in peace for 18 years, until the Battle of Kus, when word-bearers ambushed the Ultramarines. Persuaded by a cult agent and old friend, John Grammaticus, Ol left Kus for Terra. He obtained a ritual dagger from a chaos cultist, and with the dagger and a warp compass, he and a handful of companions and an old servitor began a long, dangerous voyage through time and space. They were hunted, word-bearers, the Alpha Legion, daemons, cult assassins eager to see Horus triumphant. After countless perils, they arrived at Terra near the end of the siege. They slipped into the Imperial Palace Sanctuary, but the Emperor had already left the Golden Throne and gone to the Avenging Spirit. Vulcan received them and intended to control and detain them until the situation settled. If circumstances had been different, this might have been properly resolved. But warp distortions had caused the Sanctuary and the Avenging Spirit to overlap. In the confusion, they escaped the Custodes and entered the Avenging Spirit. There, Ol saw his old friend, the Emperor, on the edge of becoming the Black King. Under the urgings of Loken, John, and Ol himself, the Emperor finally renounced godhood and decided to stand as a human and face the gods. When Horus gravely wounded the Emperor, Ol and John stumbled into the fray by accident. John used the dark word to hurl the fully powered Horus back, buying a sliver of time. He wanted to withdraw with Ol, but Ol refused to leave the fallen Emperor. He shoved the ritual dagger into the Emperor's hand, then stood between the two titans. Even as his body was shattered into a bloody mist, Ol kept fighting, a living shield protecting the Emperor. That ritual dagger became the key to breaking the stalemate. Deceived by an avatar of the Emperor, Loken, Horus abandoned the god's power. The Emperor seized the moment, and with the ritual dagger stabbed the weakened War Master, ending the Great Heresy. "It's an honor to be remembered by a junior," Ol said. "Come on, your gift is ready." Qin Yun grinned. "Is it the dark word?" "Yes, the dark word. And one more thing I meant to give you when you were stronger. You're here now, so take it. Let it wake inside you as you grow in power." Ol led Qin Yun through streets that lay empty and silent. "Why is no one here?" Qin Yun asked. "It will fill up later," Ol said casually. "When everything ends and humanity steps into a new era, a great city will be needed as a pantheon." Qin Yun didn't press for more. He would understand in time. They reached a tall, splendid tower. "This is the echo of the Tower of Babel in this realm," Ol said. Qin Yun stared. The tower's surface was carved with countless ancient, cryptic characters. Are those the Dark Word? Yes, the language of the Creator, a power that can reshape Holy Terra simply by being spoken. Ol walked to a stone wall and beckoned. Come here. Qin Yun stepped forward. Ol pointed to the carvings. Stand in front of the wall and read them. Qin Yun obeyed. As he stared at the runes, they seemed to pulse with a living force. The characters unfurled, became light, and surged into him. Along with them came a terrible, indescribable power, dormant now within him, waiting. It was obvious the power could only be fully wielded once he ascended to a higher level. Knowledge of the Dark Word poured into Qin Yun's mind. It was incredible power, capable of altering the structure of the universe, of reshaping both the material realm of Holy Terra and the warp. But every invocation demanded a price. The greater the devastation called forth, the harsher the backlash. Everything comes at a cost, Ol said. Qin Yun tested the skill cautiously, then met Ol's eyes. Thank you, Senior. There's nothing to thank me for. It was always yours. Ol waved a hand. There's one more thing I need you to do for me. Qin Yun nodded. What is it? Find John Grammaticus, Ol said. Give him a good kick and tell him it's from All. Where is he? Qin Yun asked. No one truly knows, Ol replied. But he's most likely not dead. He has one last life. He can live on forever, for millennia, if he chooses. How will I find him? Qin Yun asked. He will come to you. Everyone is drawn to the vortex. No one can escape it. Ol's gaze was steady. If he comes, don't be gentle. All right, if he comes, I'll give him that kick, Qin Yun promised. Ol nodded with satisfaction. Keep your word, child. When Qin Yun opened his eyes again, he was back in the praying sanctuary as if he'd never left. Shiling's little angel projection hovered beside him. Master, Xia has sent a message. What does she say? They've taken landing port and asked whether to push deeper into the Cronus expanse. Qin Yun shook his head. Tell her to establish an outpost at landing port. Do not advance further for now, and have all units assemble. We need to move to support Baal. 169, new expansion pack. Saving Baal, Shiling nodded and went to relay the orders. Qin Yun stood still for a long moment, thoughtful. After we rescue Baal, I'll have to go to Holy Terra to take Guilliman's shift and carry out deep reforms across the Imperium, he said inwardly. I won't have much time to watch over the Calixis sector. I can't leave any hidden dangers behind. If everything slides back to its old state after I leave, all my work will be wasted. Before I transmigrated, the Imperium was a cesspit, and even now it still is. Did I transmigrate for nothing? He decided to use the time before heading to Baal to clean up the last of the Calixis sector's problems and to give the players a warm-up so they could be ready to support Baal. Qin Yun's private control room was just a short walk from the praying sanctuary. Soldiers at the door snapped to attention and gave the Aquila salute as he approached. Saint! Saint! Qin Yun nodded and strode inside. Machines hummed and whirred. The room was otherwise empty, save for thinker servitors embedded in the walls. He walked to the console, opened the projection interface, and began to edit. New expansion pack, Saving Baal, officially released. Introduction. With the Orc threat defeated, the war in the Calixis sector will wind down. Yet in this dark universe, war never ends. The guide has received an emergency plea from Baal. The homeworld of Sanguinius, bastion of the Blood Angels, has extraordinary political and symbolic importance, and it is under tyranted attack, on the verge of annihilation. Dante, chapter master of the Blood Angels, has sent a distress call. The guide will answer. Imperial forces will gather and rush to the Baal system to save the Blood Angels. Content 1. Open the Baal system. Add Blood Angels Warband NPCs, and expand channels for acquiring Blood Angels relics. 2. The Imperial Bank will offer more war bonds and production loans, further supporting farming-style players. Plus, daily thought. Heretics will be spurned by the God Emperor. After a final check, Qin Yun scheduled the expansion to go live at 6 p.m. and uploaded new videos and images of the Calixis sector, fighting to the official site to accompany the release. At 6 o'clock sharp, the expansion pack and the war footage went live without warning. Players and the usual crowd on the site were stunned for a moment before exploding with excitement. The comments under the announcement filled instantly as players called friends and shared the news. The official Warhammer OL site had become one of the most active forums and video hubs on the net. People posted fan videos, trade tips, daily life updates, and argued without the heavy-handed censorship found elsewhere. That freedom had made the site sticky and massively popular. Other websites watched in envy and rage, but no complaint or report could touch the official site. Some tried to use connections to pressure it and ended up investigated themselves. It was a small scandal that barely rippled the forum's users. Within a minute, the video comments showed 999 plus and kept climbing. Voices piled up in playful chaos. Wu Deng Wang Ye Shang Dang Hai Zai Wang. Good news? Another update. Thulu vs. Pretty Girl, new expansion pack and Calixis sector footage, new content, so happy. Guillemon is my son. Hey, I'm going to save the Imperial tough guys. All simps should be sentenced. The Battle of Baal, so cool. I heard lots of angelic subchapters will join. Maybe many relics will show up. Purple is very charming. Please give me a game slot. Wah! She is just my sister. Jealous. When will I get a slot? Guillemon is my son. No rush. Tens of millions already reserved. Selected little alpaca of God. You got a slot and you're showing off, old 13. Dora is the lord of myriad machines. Finally a version that doesn't discriminate against farming players. The most courageous brother of Warhammer. How is it discriminating? Previous updates favored farmers too. One night output Slanesh 10 times. They got loans and game rules support. Big profits incoming. Fat face who kisses Nurgle madly. Exactly. Don't rewrite history. Combat players need support too. Desert Lone Ha, saving Baal. Does that mean Dante will be appointed regent of the Dark Imperium? Blood Angels rising. Guillemon is my son, selling angel sauce in the front row, avenging Spirit Edition. One night output Slanesh 10 times. Dante probably won't be regent. How would the guide position himself? Fat face who kisses Nurgle madly. Even in a realistic game, the official side keeps the original plot going. Besides, the guide is a saint, a representative of the Emperor. Just that identity matters. While Qin Yun handled state affairs and tied up loose ends from the Calixis reforms, he checked the forum and group chats. He was pleased to see the players fired up. The players' combat abilities had been proven in recent battles. They could now sway engagements. Used properly, they would give a decisive edge. World chat buzzed with plans to upgrade gear and prepare for Baal. The Emperor Numa battle group burned all the contribution points they'd earned, mortgaged purchased planets and industries, and borrowed enormous sums from the Imperial Bank to buy warships, ground vehicles, hire auxiliaries, and raise cannon fodder armies. After the Calixis War, Qin Yun had honored a pre-war promise, converting players' war scores into merits they could spend on positions, planets, and factories. Those assets produced resources for warbands and auxiliaries and completed a virtuous cycle. Fight, earn, invest, grow stronger. Easier victories followed. Warbands that had developed well now owned planets and industries. The Hammer and Sickle battle group bought new third-generation Zaku mechs and set up a research team to adapt them, hoping to top Baal's battlefield. They also bought a lunar-class cruiser and dozens of destroyers and frigates to form their own fleet. Auxiliary forces got tomorrow exoskeleton armor and nano-biosuits, armored shells on the outside, biosuits inside, so troopers could fight in places heavy armor couldn't go. Their combat ability leapt forward. The Hogwarts warband splurged on psychic amplifiers and reached out to the Eldar like Kasareth the Seer to build psychic titans and psychic artillery. Every warband prepared, equipping new gear with borrowed contribution points. In the end, many warbands carried massive debts. Inquisitor Kaiden, Captain Kale, and Imperial heroes like Titus were stunned. The God-chosen had taken loans to buy equipment just to serve the Emperor better. That kind of dedication impressed even cynical veterans. Shiling's orders set the Calixis sector departments into motion. Generals, Xia, Ainge, and others pulled back from pursuing orcs, left contingents at the landing port, and consolidated forces in the sector. The Forge Worlds, led by Lost, diverted military production to the army, promoted unmanned factories, and opened more production lines. Primaris Space Marines that had finished modification were readied as reinforcement to test Primaris combat effectiveness. After escorting Corps back to Holy Terra, Qin Yun had acquired complete Primaris technology. Players could unlock Primaris upgrades, though they needed high levels, none qualified yet. However, Astartes cultivated from gene seed could be modified without level limits, so Qin Yun selected screened Astartes for Primaris conversion. Many succeeded. Several young volunteers were undergoing Primaris surgical modification, but the process was long and adaptation even longer, so none were fully recovered yet. Qin Yun also reshaped the administrative framework, confirming Governor von Valancius as sector governor, promoting Heidelake to sector bishop, and assembling a compliant leadership team. He worked with Inquisitor Kaiden to reorganize the Inquisition, suppress extremist ideology, and set up a review and monitoring system. The reforms required inquisitors to accept imperial law and oversight from other departments while granting them certain lawful enforcement powers. If a planet harbored heretics, xenos, or chaos, the Inquisition must investigate rulers for dereliction, excessive oppression, or unfair enforcement that pushed populations to rebellion. Qin Yun had no illusions about the Inquisition's contributions. They were crucial fighting the warp and xenos, but their unchecked power and greed were corrosive. Some inquisitors had wealth exceeding rogue trader dynasties, and extremist purges often slaughtered innocents, fueling chaos instead of containing it. The Inquisition had treated symptoms with brutal force rather than addressing root causes. Qin Yun demanded change. After finalizing reforms and marshaling the prepared forces, Qin Yun set out for Baal. Titus bid the War Master farewell. His mission in the Calixus sector finished. He needed to resume a Death Watch duty and hoped to return. Before leaving, Titus handed the War Master his master-crafted chainsword, Friendship. "This is yours, as a reward for the last competition," Titus said. The War Master admired the weapon. "What a handsome blade. Use it well. I hope to hear your legend one day." Titus smiled. "See you again, brother. Don't worry, we'll meet again soon. Practice your swordplay. Don't be defeated by me in 3 moves." Titus didn't look back. Instead, he made a gesture that delighted the god chosen. He gave the War Master the middle finger. "You'll never beat me in this life." "When I hit max skill, Titus, you'll be defeated," the War Master muttered as he watched the transport depart. The War Master is invincible. The fleet, led by the Imperial Glory, folded into the warp and aimed for Baal. Qin Yun sat upon the lighthouse throne, guiding the ships and projecting his soul into the warp to listen to the cries of dying worlds. Demons recoiled from the golden light that surrounded him. Where his consciousness drifted, they fled. Save Baal. Suddenly, the lighthouse received a psychic message. Time and space mean nothing in the warp. The instant Qin Yun took in the message, his consciousness locked onto the astropath who had sent it. The sender's soul had been snagged by a demon and was about to be torn apart. Qin Yun ripped the creature away and freed the astropath's spirit. The soul was scarred and near exhaustion. It had paid a horrific price to send the signal. When the astropath saw Qin Yun's presence in the warp, he babbled incoherently in relief, calling him sanguineous. "You should not die here. Go back," Qin Yun said. "I will save Baal," the astropath answered. Qin Yun poured power into the shattered soul and healed it, then opened a safe passage back to Holy Terra. Back at Baal's astropathic relay station, Jiran Lit worked the console with one hand while watching the door. He feared the Sons of the Angel might come in, not because he feared punishment, but because he feared being stopped. Only a handful of astropaths still operated the relay. They had never ceased trying to break through the tyrannid-shadowed silence since the war began. Many astropaths had been broken by the Great Rift storms. A few survived, but went mad, and Lit had been forced to execute some of them. Now only he and Gino remained. "Master, what are you doing?" Gino asked, watching Lit. "Cleaning the sending cradle," Lit lied. "It calms me." Gino was unconvinced. "This should be left to the servants. They need rest," Lit said. Gino saw through him. "You're trying to send a message alone, aren't you? The warp storm will tear your soul apart. The soulless ones out there are dangerous." "It's worth a try," Lit said quietly. When the Great Rift tore open, it also fractured the Tyrannid shadow. This might be our best chance. Lit opened the psychic amplifier, tuned the systems, and cut Gino's psychic dampener so the boy couldn't stop him. If there was any hope, the Sons of the Angel needed a living astropath to find it. When the preparations were done, Lit lay down. "Goodbye, Gino. If possible, live well," he said. "No," Gino cried. "At least let me help you." Lit had already raised the shielding field. He stepped into the warp alone. Inside the warp, Lit saw no Astronomicon. Its light was gone. Fear flooded him. Had Holy Terra fallen? Had the Emperor died? Without that guiding beacon, where could humanity go? Despair gnawed at him. The soulless ones smelled his fear and began hunting. Lit had little time to leave the warp, yet he stayed, straining to find any sign of hope. Save the sons of the angel, he prayed. Then he saw a light, far weaker than the Astronomicon but equally pure. It sang a holy, endless hymn. He reached out his mind with all he had. The soulless ones closed in and finally caught him, but instead of the expected torture, he heard a demon howl and flee. Opening his eyes, an angel of light stood before him. Golden armor, a weeping mask, and white wings pure as driven snow. Sanguinius! Jiran gasped, tears and joy so strong he could barely speak. You should not die here. Go back, the figure said. I will save Baal, Jiran replied. The wave of the warp parted. A path opened. The angel pushed him toward it, and Jiran fell toward Holy Terra. He awoke gasping in the stasis cradle, grabbed Gino and shouted, Go, tell the sons of the angel, he has returned. Author's note, almost 3,000 monthly votes. Oh my goodness. I owe 2 more chapters, 8 chapters total, 24,000 words. Gotta keep pushing. 170. Died in the name of an angel. The warp relay station of the Baal system sat on the highest ridge of the shattered mountains on Baal Secundus, carved into sheer, wind-scoured cliffs. The slopes were steep and littered with cold, brittle boulders, easy to defend, nightmarish to assault. Now the place was a ruin of smoke and blackened pox. The air hung with the stench of burning biomass. Explosions had carved craters across the stone, and the ground was carpeted with tyrannid corpses. Hundreds of thousands, frozen by the thin, bitter air. Some of the aliens twitched still, not yet entirely dead. Harkin, recently elevated to chapter master of the Crimson Blades warband, stood and stared at the disordered field. Mortal soldiers moved among the carcasses, searching for comrades with breath left in them, or delivering the killing stroke to beasts that still fought. Harkin kept count in his head. This felt like the 48th, no, the 49th assault. Wave after wave of tyrannids had smashed against them. These creatures knew neither exhaustion nor caution. Each surge was a single, frenzied purpose. Harkin watched brothers fall, one after another, the ranks thinning. The mortal defenders were exhausted and bloodied, but they would not yield. Even if they bled to the last man, the sons of the angels would not give ground. Harkin was 400 years old and had only been chapter master for a few days. Jian, his predecessor, had been a legend, a veteran swordsman, a hero of the Imperium. During the 32nd assault, when the warp relay station itself teetered on the brink of falling, Jian had chosen an elite squad and struck at the tyrannid's nerve, a decapitation strike meant to sever the node creatures and break the hive's will. Harkin had wanted to join, but Jian had refused. Someone must stay to lead them, Jian had said. If I do not return, it will be you. Harkin, you are the only one I can trust. The strike succeeded. The tyrannid tide broke and retreated in disordered piles of chittering corpses, but Jian and his squad did not return. When Harkin led a search party to the strike site, he found Jian at the summit of a hill of carcasses, no doubt of his victory. Beside him lay the shattered husk of a massive node creature. Around them, the bodies of brothers were torn and scattered. Nothing was whole. Harkin called to Jian, First blood, you've won, and climbed through the gore to his side. Jian did not answer. He was dead, impaled by barbed limbs, his organs exposed, yet somehow still leaning on his sword, his helmet split and his scarred face hard in the cold air, anger frozen on it. Harkin saluted the dead chapter master, gathered Jian and the fallen brothers, and returned. He assumed the blackened halo as leader. That day, the Crimson Blades numbered only 157. Harkin did not know how long they could hold. Without reinforcements, their fall was inevitable. First blood. Tech Sergeant Karnak saluted, his fist striking his breastplate. Recon shows the tyrannid swarm in disarray. The hive mind seems disrupted. Something in the warp has thrown it. Then the astropaths must live, Harkin said. That is our primary mission. Understood. Karnak bowed slightly. Tell the men to rest what little they can, repair armor and weapons where possible, and resupply the auto turrets with ammunition and power cells. We will prepare for the next wave. Harkin hesitated, then added, and go to the communications array. See if anyone can be contacted. Any aid, any report. Tell them we need to know what's happening beyond Baal Secundus. No news, Karnak said. I've tried every 3 hours. Since Karbanda invaded 5 days ago, all links have been silent. That doesn't mean defenses are gone elsewhere. Keep trying. Bring the astropaths here. We must confirm their condition and have them pray. The warp is unstable. We cannot risk demonic corruption. Perhaps that won't be necessary. Karnak nodded toward the summit. Harkin turned. Master Lit approached, supported by Gino and a servitor, his face alight with something like rapture. Harkin's hand tightened on his bolter. Lit's stare was feverish. What is happening? Harkin asked. He is here. Lit's voice trembled. The angel is here. Harkin searched Lit for symptoms of possession. The warp could twist a mind. Psychers were vulnerable. Do not be absurd, he snapped. Tell me plainly. Lit closed his eyes, breathing prayers as Harkin demanded. Faith steadied him. He spoke calmly, recounting what he had seen. A beacon of light, not from Holy Terra, pealing hymns, and a divine figure with white wings, armor of gleaming gold, wings arcing from his back like a herald's banner. That was an angel, Lit insisted. He said he would save Baal. He is on his way. Could it be St. Gelino? Harkin asked. Sanguinius was dead, entombed beneath Angel Keep, his soul shattered, according to the librarians. Strange visions of St. Gelino, a holy archetype, could appear in desperate times. No, Lit said. I've seen St. Gelino. He resembles Sanguinius, but this was different. This was a true angel of the Emperor, not necessarily Sanguinius of Baal, but one of his angels, come for humanity. If he comes, he brings hope, Karnak muttered. Harkin kept his doubt. Could the Emperor himself have resurrected Sanguinius? Some of the Primarchs had strange fates, death and rebirth in rare cases, but certainty was impossible. Still, the thought lodged in his mind. Give the men hope, he told himself. They needed something to hold to. Send messages, Harkin ordered at last. Tell other forces reinforcements are coming. Spread that hope. Shall we verify first? Karnak asked. And risk losing the last of the men to despair? Harkin's voice was flat. No, if even a thread of hope lengthens our resistance, spread it. Keep calling until every channel is lit. Karnak snapped his salute. As you command, First Blood. We'll broadcast until the Vox channels burn out. An alarm cut across them. The Tyranids had rallied and were throwing themselves at the relay station again. Harkin strapped on his helmet and counted silently as the enemy advanced. On Baal Prime, at Angel Keep, the Grand Cathedral trembled under the thunder of distant barrages. Survivors from scattered warbands had painted their armor black and gathered for a final sacrifice. When the Great Rift had opened, the hive mind had been rent, the swarms had flailed, and the Space Marines had slaughtered them by the thousands. They had driven the beasts from Angel Keep, reorganized and controlled key defensive positions. But the hive mind was resilient. It had stitched itself back together, and now its assault resumed with fresh fury. Dante, chapter master of the Blood Angels, knelt before the statue of Sanguinius in the cathedral, confession on his lips. He wept for the legacy he would soon bury. When the ritual ended, he rose. Priest Audemar awaited him. My lord, Audemar said, voice steady, all have gathered as you commanded. And the death company? Dante asked, grief and resolve braided together. They stand ready. The gates of the Tower of the Lost are prepared to open. Dante's mask was off. The men who would be released into the black rage would be fools to the last, burning their lives in wrath. This order cannot be stopped, he reminded Audemar. Once the bindings fall, those souls will know nothing but fury until they are spent. I know, Audemar answered. Outside, the black-clad sons of the angels knelt on weapons and sang the chants of their chapter, voices lifted in lament and defiance, blood of death. Dante joined them, then spoke to the gathered. The Tyrannid has recovered. When the Great Rift opened, it was shattered, but time has healed its wounds. Soon it will be a whole beast again, and then we will face utter defeat. No reinforcements have reached us. We are alone. 10,000 years ago, our Primarch died first and accepted that end to give us victory. Today, we follow that example. If we can strike the swarm's leader, we may yet cripple it and save worlds beyond Baal. Cast off the red thirst and fight with fury. For the Emperor, for Sanguinius, let us seek our fated deaths and burn our wrath into our enemies. For the Emperor, for Sanguinius, the warriors cried. Then go, Dante commanded Audemar. Open the Tower of the Lost. Let all the sons of the angels be unleashed. Bells tolled. Priests and machine priests administered rites that called the lost back to battle. The bindings on the Tower of the Lost were removed, and the Death Company howled as they surged forth, driven by the black rage and the memory of betrayal. Horus, why? Why did you betray us? A lament that had echoed for 10,000 years and found no answer. Dante listened to those howls with a grim serenity, raised the axe mortalis, and shouted, "Sons of the angels, advance! For Sanguinius, for the Emperor, for fated death!" They roared and charged. The final trial had come. The descendants of Sanguinius would meet their ultimate battle. In Angel Keep's communications chamber, a servitor trembled as it decoded a faint signal from Baal Secundus. The cogitator translated, and a printer clacked and long-processed characters onto a strip of paper. The mechanic priest picked up the printed slip and read aloud the terse message. Plus reinforcements for Baal are about to arrive. Please hold out and await support. P.S. Today's update is only 9,000 words. I'm a bit decadent. I didn't go out. I just couldn't write more. Dante, is that you, Father? After the Great Rift opened, the sun vanished, and the two moonworlds that once orbited Baal Prime were gone. The sky ran with blood, lit by the flames of wrath. The sons of the angels surged forward, shouting battle cries and cutting a swath through the tyrannid tide. We were born from the angel's blood. We come from his essence. Our fury is born of his rage at betrayal. Fight in the name of the angel. Fight in the name of the emperor. Fight in the name of humanity. We may all fall, but in the end, victory will be ours. Dante bellowed the final vow. The other blood angels answered in a deafening chorus. He had lived for nearly 13 centuries and had always kept the red thirst and black rage from spilling beyond him. Today, he let go. The inferno within him flared. Suppressed hatred and a ravenous desire for slaughter were unchained. His chest thudded like a weapon, firing to destruction. His gums bared in a fang-like snarl, muscles ballooned, and a terrible strength suffused him. Blood! 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 Kill! 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 Led by Dante, the Blood Angels roared and surged from Angel Keep like a living conflagration. The Tyranids were disoriented after the rift, slow, their coordination torn, and the sons of the angels carved into them without mercy, letting rage and thirst for blood drive every stroke. Bladed forms surged forward. Dante's death axe bit through carapace and chitin. The arc-laced blade tore flesh and limb, severing arms and spilling crimson across the dry desert. Dante moved like a gale of slaughter, roaring with each strike. Behind him, Angel Keep's guns made desperate, thunderous discharges. Under the guidance of the mechanical priest, mortal crews poured ruinous artillery into the swarm's ranks. Massive numbers of Tyranids were blasted skyward and ripped apart by shockwaves. As Dante embraced his true fury, visions swarmed him, phantoms from Terra and the Long War. He was yanked back to the siege of Terra, shoulder to shoulder with brothers he remembered from the Blood Angels' annals. Amit, the first chapter master of the Flesh-Tearers' warband, appeared, roaring, dueling a World Eater. The ancient hero's face twisted from rage to sorrow, then to a hollow resignation, born of seeing the universe's cruel patterns. Then Zephon, the Lamenter. When the traitors breached the last walls and the Imperial Palace's final sanctuary trembled, Zephon and a host of Blood Angels had launched out on jump packs to buy time for survivors. Zephon landed beside a battered member of the Adeptus Mechanicus and killed the World Eater hunting him. This is your last chance, Arkan. Run. You can still reach the sanctuary. Zephon, they killed my monkey and my friends. Dante could not fully parse the scene, but he felt the Lamenter's grief and the Mechanicus man's bitter loss of brotherhood. The recorded heroes flashed by, each apparition stoking Dante's fury. When Sanguinius and the Vengeful Spirit appeared, his rage crested. At the sight of Horus, Dante echoed words he'd heard on that doomed ship. Horus, why? Why did you betray us? He witnessed the angel's death and felt an enormous animal anger sweep most of his reason away. Around him, Blood Angels howled and raged, smashing everything in reach. As the slaughter peaked, a golden light split the sky. An angel with beating wings descended, Saint Geleno, and a warp rift opened behind him. The cursed legion poured through, black armor studded with skulls and bone, fire spitting from their eyes and mouths. They neither spoke nor parleyed. They simply fired into the tyrannid masses. The bloodshed took on new, even stranger rhythms. At the same time, far above the battlefield, Qin Yun's forces arrived in the Baal system. "Enter real space," the celestial commander ordered from his command platform. With a sonorous bell, the ready warband ships shuddered into real space presence. Blast shields lifted, and the Imperial officers on the bridges drank in the void. The fleet of Blood Angel's successors was a ragged, battered thing, every warband ship scarred. Still, the tyrannid tide seemed endless, swarming and pressing for total annihilation. "Join the battle," Qin Yun ordered. "Go save the sons of the angels." The bridge of the Sword of Baal crackled with orders. "Lock onto bioship TGO-3, fire missiles." "Lances charged, Captain. Aim at that octopus-like YT-117 beside it. Pierce it." Captain Nevaeh sat on her throne, issuing commands with grim efficiency. With the fall of warband flagships like Angel's Glory and Blade of Vengeance, the Angel Fleet's command had collapsed, but she and the remaining captains fought on, dying in the Angel's name. Under her orders, shells tore through biocarapaces and flesh. Fragments of chitin and huge lumps of organic tissue floated, suspended by the void. The Sword of Baal's kill tally was respectable, its lance and torpedoes deadlier than many, but every bioship downed was replaced by 20 more. There was no hope in the numbers. A flare on the tactical display tore through her focus. An allied marker blinked red and died. A frigate had been entwined by a living tentacle and shredded. Nevaeh steadied herself and continued to orchestrate the fight. Bioplasma lanced at void shields, and the alarms screamed as torpedo spikes and living missiles warped and punctured defenses. The Tyranids spat tooth-like segmented weapons laden with metal-eating organisms, and they also hurled shimmering gas to slow approaches before snapping out tentacles with crushing force to tear ships apart. Then, at the flank, a glint of hope. The largest bio-warship loomed, a hulking hive mother's single tentacle as broad as a battle barge, its hull encrusted with ice and rock, its twin jaw bases opening like scissor gates, a pair of reddish-brown eyes and a small tentacled maw. Nevaeh locked all batteries on it. "Lock onto that hive mother, load cyclone torpedoes and charge the lances." Her augmented mind turned the battlefield data into a plan. The hive mother was the synaptic node of that tendril. Cut it down, and the tendril might collapse. Lances flared and struck its head, but where a lance would split ordinary bioships, it only cracked the hive mother's outer rock and carapace. The beast turned and opened its massive mouth at the Sword of Baal. Hundreds of bioships closed in, encircling Nevaeh's ship. Alarms dissolved into unabating red. "It's over," Nevaeh thought, eyes calm as death. Then multiple lances fired in unison at the hive mother's head from a point beyond their flank. The creature twisted in pain, and the Sword of Baal slipped from its maw. "Who is?" Nevaeh and her crew peered through the observation plex. A colossal ship had entered at some unseen moment. Its gilded aquila gleamed at the prow as if about to spread living wings. Golden hull plates and towering statues, macro cannons as huge as spires, loomed over them. Proximity tugged the Sword of Baal into the stranger ship's gravity well. "This isn't ours. That's a Gloriana class," Nevaeh breathed. "How can there be a Gloriana class? Is this some last delirium?" Before she could answer, the auger array supervisor barked, "Captain, a large number of friendly forces have entered the field. On the projection, hundreds of allied markers clustered, vast numbers. The Gloriana class and its supporting fleet carved a bloody path through the Tyrannid tide. Lances, nova cannons, cyclone torpedoes, and pulse lasers turned the void into a pyre. The hive mother reeled as lances ripped through its head and cyclone torpedoes detonated in its maw, destroying most of the control center. The carrier shed 3/5 of its head beneath those blows. It wasn't a decisive eradication. The Leviathan hive fleets had adapted, dispersing synaptic nodes into smaller ships, but the sudden intervention gave the Angel fleet room to breathe. Nevaeh opened hails. "Thank you for your assistance. On behalf of the Scions of the Angels, welcome to Baal." The projection answered. An angel in golden armor appeared, a weeping mask, a long sword and staff in gauntleted hands, pure white wings spread. Nevaeh's voice broke. She was certain before the reply came. "Sanguinius?" The angel in the projection spoke humbly. "This is only what we should do. No one watches idly while the Emperor's loyal servants make meaningless sacrifices." Qin Yun's tone was low, but Nevaeh did not hear explanation. she heard salvation. Tears streamed down the bridge as crewmen shouted, "Sanguinius has returned." Despair turned to fervor. The supporting fleet's guns focused on synaptic nodes and command ships, each kill dragging the Hive fleet into temporary chaos and allowing the Imperials to harvest fresh openings. Under Qin Yun's direct orders from the Bridge of the Imperial Glory, the command ships were prioritized. The chase turned the tide enough to execute orbital drops to relieve the sons of the angels on Baal Prime. On the surface, the battle had hedged into a darker, more tragic edge. With the Cursed Legion at their flanks, the Blood Angels charged a descending Hive tyrant, a colossus on backward-bent legs, taller than a dreadnought. Chimney-like vents on its back spewed spores. Its arms ended in 4 psychically attuned bone blades, cruel as reapers. Dante and the beast closed like avatars of war, each pouring himself into the annihilation of the other. Dante's axe bit off an arm. The tyrant hurled him through the air. He crashed into the desert, roiling dust and grit. Alarms screamed in his helm. His armor was rent in many places, his jump pack blinking fatal runes. "I'm going to die." The thought flared and then steadied. He rose. Around him, the angelic scions were consumed by madness, howling with blood rage and spinning in their final sacrifice. Dante forced a bitter smile and intoned his oath between gritted teeth. "I am the Lord of Blood, and all I do is for the making of my being. I crave neither glory nor absolution. Battle is my purpose, sacrifice my duty. For the angels, for the Emperor." He squared himself for a life-for-life charge at the Hive Tyrant. Then a sound brushed across Baal Prime. At first it was like dry leaves skittering, a faint scuff of footsteps. Like beetles flicking wing cases, a soft flutter. Those sounds braided and multiplied. The murmur swelled, like a tidal roar, like a volcano's throat, like the pulse of the stars and the thunder of gods. It filled the world with stunned silence. "He's here," 1,000 voices intoned, a single chant raised by countless wills. "He's here. Salvation has come." The maddened blood angels looked skyward. The black rage lifted from their eyes as if a spell had been broken. Sanity returned in a rush. Drop pods and transports streaked the heavens, and an angel of light descended, wings spread like a golden sun. Dante, exhausted beyond measure, reached up as if he could grasp that impossible salvation. "Is that you, my father?" P.S. Angels and Carbonda. 172. The power of the guide rationality halo. Fanaticism. Emperor's light. Blessing. Roar. Prayer. Qin Yun ascended into the sky. He unleashed a cascade of abilities with a single will. A rich radiance burst from his commanding form until he looked like a living sun. Golden showers of light poured down across the battlefield. They struck the angelic scions locked in bloody combat with the Tyranids, pulling them back from the clutches of black rage and red thirst, staunching ceaseless bleeding, restoring exhausted bodies. Damaged power armor knit itself whole under that strange force. Depleted energy reserves refilled, even the ammunition in bolt guns inexplicably replenished. Audemars, the priest, looked up and wept. "He's back. He's truly back, bringing the Emperor's blessing and power, returning to us. For Sanguinius, for Sanguinius." Other angelic scions still fighting echoed the cry, their voices full of fervent zeal. Every blood angel who had succumbed to endless visions of Horus slaying Sanguinius had endured that indescribable torment for 10,000 years. Now that pain was being healed simply because Sanguinius had come back to their side. Those who had believed this battle doomed now saw a sliver of hope. They didn't understand everything, but one truth was plain. They had received aid. Victory would belong to them, to Sanguinius, to the Emperor. A distant Hive tyrant bellowed, snapping Dante's attention back to the fight. The Lord of Blood knew it was not time to revel in the guide's return. "Right, I almost forgot about you," he muttered, shaking off despair and the grip of the black rage and red thirst. He regained control in the battle. Dante issued orders over the comms. Rally, minimize casualties, hold for reinforcements. The blessing restored his wrecked power armor. The crimson warnings vanished, replaced by normal status indicators. He charged the Tyranid tyrant. The creature snarled and swung its bone sword. Axe met blade with a ringing clang. Glowing force fields interwove and exploded outward. This time the Axe Mortalis asserted dominance. The bone sword couldn't withstand the impact. Hairline cracks snaked across the blade and it shattered. Thick ichor spouted from the broken weapon. The eyes embedded in the hilt spun and screamed. Many tyrantid weapons are symbiotic, living things, and can be killed. The tyrant roared in fury. Nearby organisms answered its call, swarming Dante from all sides to overwhelm him by sheer numbers. "Come on! I'm your nightmare. I am your angel of death," Dante cried, charging into the horde without hesitation. "The guide is as handsome as ever. My heart is on fire. This guy actually still dares to say he isn't sanguineous." From a transport above the fray, players watched the guide wreak havoc in the sky, eyes red with envy. "Let's log off and spam the forums. Demand wings. We want to fly and show off too." I'm so mad. The devs treat players like background characters. Why do all the cool spotlight moments go to the guide? He's the devs' golden child. No wonder this amazing game is free and has no microtransactions. We're all just supporting cast. There should be wings for everyone. Level up enough and we'll all get wings. I'm having Dora Workshop build me a pair of metal wings when I get back. Real retractable flying wings. That's perfect. If the official won't give them, we'll make them ourselves. Metal wings look awesome. All American comic heroes, who can beat Warhammer? Which American comic hero has metal wings? Tyranids approaching. Be ready to exit the transport, the pilot warned, cutting their chatter short. Outside, a dark cloud of flapping wings and serrated limbs rushed toward the transport. Enemies swarmed from every direction. The multi-barreled bolters on the fuselage spun up, pouring a hail of rounds into the swarm. The turbo laser pulsed, piercing through organisms and turning them into charred fragments. Wing-mounted missiles streaked out, detonating among the sky-teeming mass and sending shredded bodies spiraling earthward. The swarm counterattacked. Living projectiles and corrosive biobombs fell like rain. Spore mines burst in midair, spraying barbs and poisonous mists. The transport's shields stuttered under the onslaught. Boom! The tail of a transport erupted in flame and a plume of smoke as thousands of tyranids overwhelmed it, tearing it apart. "Die! Die!" shouted players as one of their own, wounded but determined, blasted from the craft on a dwindling jump pack. Tyranids hounded him. He cut them down with bolter and chainsword. The War Master of the Emperor Numa battle group and others laid suppressing fire to assist, spraying rounds that shredded pursuing creatures and sent gore and bone raining down. But the Tyranid numbers were inexhaustible. Eventually, the player was torn limb from limb. "How tragic," someone murmured. "Tsk, tsk," another. The Emperor Numa players mourned briefly. A death immediately after drop was a notorious fate. They knew the forum comments already. "Heh! Unlucky guy," because they had all seen it happen. "I think you guys shouldn't get sentimental. We're about to be the unlucky ones," the War Master warned, pointing. Shi Lang and the others looked up, stunned. The sky had become a wall of black winged vortices. The Tyranid swarm thickened into a solid mass that no transport could pass through unscathed. "Open fire. Keep them from seizing the sky," the drop commander ordered. Gunships and fighters poured everything into the cloud. Missiles, lasers, melta. The swarm was shredded in places. Bodies fell like rain, but the wall endured. The mass pressed down like the end of the world. Boom! A lead fighter slammed into the swarm and exploded in a brilliant fireball. "We can't land. The swarm will control the sky. You have to jump. God chosen," the pilot barked. After repeated attempts, the aerial insertion commander abandoned his plan. There were simply too many Tyranids. Their air power couldn't guarantee extraction. Landing would mean never getting back up. "Let's go." Dropping from this height, the commander doesn't care about our lives. "Quiet. We jump here and fight." The War Master was first to leap from the rear ramp. Players followed, activating jump packs and pouring toward the ground. Below, the surface had become a chitinous ocean of claws and teeth, hormagaunts, termagants, raveners, zoanthropes, and endless other horrors. Tyrannid structures rose everywhere, capillary towers clawing at the clouds, bubbling digestion pools, spawning pits that writhed and birthed new killers. No sooner had players hit the ground than they were swarmed. Hellfire missiles and shoulder-fired fusion warheads detonated among the mass, sending a mushroom cloud skyward and vaporizing the biggest of the beasts. A shockwave tore through, shredding everything in its path. Fragments of flesh and carapace flew like rain. The players braced, accustomed to the blast, and crouched to minimize impact. Using such high-power weapons at point-blank range was madness. But players were nothing if not daring. Kill! Roared the War Master, charging with a roaring chainsword that carved bloody arcs through alien flesh. Emperor Numa players backed him, bolt guns sweeping the field. More players dropped in. Drop pods slammed into the surface with earth-shaking impacts, leaving scorched craters as their hatches spat frantic combatants into the fray, all shouting strange slogans as they ran. The hammer and sickle battle group landed in the most showy fashion. Zaku 03 mechs descended using built-in propulsion and hit the ground at speed. Their energy blades sliced through armor as if it were butter, splitting thick-shelled Tyranids in half. Hellfire and Skyblade missiles trailed like falling flowers, detonating across the battlefield. Lacking dismounted infantry, however, many small Tyranids swarmed the mech's legs and torsos. Above the field, Qin Yun still battled winged Tyranids. They came in such numbers and diversity, they formed a living black cloud. Thunder, Qin Yun whispered, and the flames in his eyes flared. Energy gathered at the end of his staff and then erupted outward. In an instant, violent thunder rolled across dozens of kilometers, a ferocious storm that lit the sky. It was like a sea of lightning tearing the world apart. One could feel the scalp-tingling awe. The closest Tyranids were instant ash, those farther off charred black. Even those at the edge had their nervous systems seared. Countless creatures fell dead. For a long moment the sky cleared, only to slowly be reoccupied by fresh organisms. Too strong. The guide is awesome. The guide is definitely the dev's favorite son. Players who had witnessed the lightning whispered in excitement. Shi Qilang frowned and looked at his own hands, which shimmered with lesser psychic light. Thanks to help from the Eldar, the players had crafted psychic amplifiers from spirit bones and soul stones, far more effective than mundane gear. That had bolstered the confidence of psychic players like him, until the guide's spectacle made him doubt everything. "It's obvious," the War Master said as he pulled his chainsword free from a steaming alien torso. "You have a player panel. The guide has a boss panel. Base stats are different, so the power gap is natural." He answered over the comm as more Tyranids lunged. He charged, cleaving a Tyranid warrior in two. The chainsword's teeth sawed through carapace and skull, and a kill count +1 prompt blinked in his HUD. "Is this my father's power?" Dante mused, finishing off the last of the snarling attackers and looking to the sky. The Blood Angel's scriptures held no record of Sanguinius wielding such dazzling psychic stormcraft. Had the Emperor resurrected him and granted even more power? A flutter of doubt crossed Dante. Could this be a chaos ruse, a demon wearing Sanguinius's face? The thought stuck. Then St. Gelano swept in on white light and stood beside the angel, fending off lunging Tyranids and saluting. Dante understood that gesture. The salute of the Sanguinary Guard, the vow of loyalty given only to the one they served. In Blood Angel's lore, St. Gelano had been Sanguinius's confidential messenger, a member of the Sanguinary Guard who sacrificed himself to protect the Primarch during the Davin campaign and was thereafter blessed with a pair of pure white wings of light. Only the one he had pledged himself to, Sanguinius, would receive such a salute. Unless, of course, the Emperor himself stood before them. The Emperor's image was nothing like this. St. Gelano's act vouched for the other figure as Sanguinius. Roar! The Hive Tyrant bellowed and charged Dante. "Alien, I will use your death to please the Bloodfather," Dante vowed, and charged, intending to offer the tyrant's destruction as tribute to the returned Sanguinius. Far from the surface, in the Bloodstone mining field, Mephiston and a group of psychic librarians finally clawed a way out. A psychic detonation during their clash with Carbonda had collapsed the mine tunnel and buried them. They had spent hours digging back to the surface, expecting to emerge into a desperate fight, but when they broke free, the nearby Tyranids were inexplicably gone. Confused, they were hit by an immense psychic tremor that made them stagger. That power, it comes from Angel Keep. What happened there? Mephiston's face was grave. "First, call a gunship to take us out," Rosellas said. Mephiston activated his comm and hailed the nearest vehicle. A reply came, but the craft's transponder code didn't match the Blood Angels or any known successor warband. A few minutes later, a gunship resolved in view. "Who are you?" Rosellas demanded. "I'm from Scintilla 03 Legion," the pilot answered. "We came to Baal under the Saints' guidance to give you support. Come aboard. I'll take you back to the battlefield." You should still make it in time for the slaughter. If you're too slow, the god chosen will leave nothing for you. Get on, Mephiston urged. Now was not the moment for questions about provenance. They needed to return to the surface and make up for their failure to stop Carbonda. Once aboard and airborne, Mephiston finally pressed the pilot. Who is the saint? Who are the god chosen? P.S. Working hard, working hard. Today's beautiful picture, Mephiston. Mephiston and the other librarians learned the situation from the pilot as the gunship cut through the smoke-choked sky. A vast Imperial force had assembled in the Calixis sector, and once the warp storm allowed it, had rushed to reinforce Baal. Warships were locked in a furious engagement with the Hive Tyrant fleet in the void, while reinforcements had been airdropped onto the surface and were fighting the Tyranid swarms tooth and nail. The fighting on both fronts was brutal, but the balance was tipping in humanity's favor. The destruction of the Tyranid hive seemed inevitable. The news lifted all their spirits. When they had emerged from the collapsed blood crystal mine, they had expected to miss the Battle of Baal entirely, or to climb out into a world overrun by Tyranids. No one had expected to see a turning of the tide like this, a light at the end of the tunnel. The pilot also told them that the decision to intervene had come from the Saint and described sweeping reforms across the Calixis sector. Curiosity about the Saint flared in their hearts, but a verbal report was no substitute for seeing with their own eyes. When the gunship dove toward the thunderous battlefield, they saw the Saint, an angel sword. Light gathered around him until he was a golden sun, and every motion shattered Tyranids with thunder and flame. Corpses rained down like confetti, dull thuds marking their impact. Saint Geleno fought beside that angel, while the angel himself cleaved through the swarm with uncanny grace. Sanguinius? Rasellus breathed, disbelief warring with reverence. The other librarians exchanged stunned glances, and then joy. Mephiston's eyes widened as well. He had once glimpsed a blessed angel while chasing Carbonda through the warp, but that time the tremor of their bloodline hadn't answered. Now, standing under that radiance, the inner red thirst and the looming black rage that always prowled him were gone, banished as if by a relic of Sanguinius himself. It felt impossible, more miraculous than any of the Primarch's relics. Could it really be Sanguinius? Mephiston murmured, torn between devotion and disbelief. A low roar came from below. Mephiston glanced sideways and his face went slack. Rasellus followed his gaze and sucked in a breath so sharp it sounded like pain. If Mephiston could be rendered speechless, whatever they were looking at had to be unimaginable. Around them, the other librarians turned, gazes snapping to the same sight. A hulking ogren the size of a small Primarch was wading through the Tyranid tide. In one massive hand he wielded a club thick as a human skull. In the other he held a staff, pulsing with psychic light. Blade Tyranids charged and were knocked aside by a single swing of the spiked club. From the staff's tip leaped lightning that incinerated several monstrous creatures at once. The ogren moved with terrible, uncanny intent. Power and psychic energy blended in his blows. "I must be dreaming," Rasellus muttered, bewildered. He looked from the angel above to the ogren in the bloodbath below. Had they been shifted to a parallel reality while buried in that mine, one in which the angel had not fallen and an ogren could wield psychic power? Chaplain Audemar's voice crackled through the comms, groundingly ordinary. "Mephiston, Rasellus, you're back. I thought you'd given yourselves for the Emperor." "Chaplain." Mephiston's reply was clipped. "What's the situation?" "We're fighting Tyranids," Audemar said. "Victory is within reach. Join the battle. Explanations can wait until after." Mephiston and Rasellus exchanged a look and then leapt from the low-flying gunship into the maelstrom. Mephiston's psychic power was among the most formidable in the galaxy. Wherever he moved, shredded Tyranid remains followed. His sorcery turned swarms to ragged shreds, and the slaughter carved paths through the enemy. Players observing the fight took notice. Fangs, white hair, that psychic output. That's Mephiston, the man who supposedly conquered the Black Rage. Shichi Lang commented with envy. "Why are NPCs this strong while we're still amateurs?" "This guy would be a villain in other stories," Ningba Ren grunted as he smashed a Tyranid's head with his hammer. "Here he's nothing but a staunch loyalist." "Focus on the fight," the War Master snapped over the comms. "Everything else can wait." Elsewhere on the field, Dante's duel with a hive tyrant was reaching its climax. Dozens of the tyrant's bodyguards lay broken. Dante had slain them all and forced the monstrosity into single combat. Pain seared him. A serrated bone sword was lodged in his chest, pierced his second heart, and scraped his spine. Toxins crawled through his veins like spiders, nerves humming torment. The hive tyrant was faring poorly, its body half shattered, its own bone swords nicked and broken. After another brutal clash, Dante staggered back. Then light descended, enveloping him. The bone sword burned to ash as the light healed him, wounds knit, armor restored without scratch. The hive tyrant saw it and froze. Cheating, it thought. This was no ordinary human. Realizing it could not win, the tyrant tried to flee. Dante leapt on his jump pack, drove an axe into the tyrant's back, then fired his inferno pistol at point-blank range. The fusion beam tore through the bio-armor, boiling organs and blood. The tyrant crashed and died. With the death of that command creature, the hive mind's control fractured. The swarm fell into confusion, coordination collapsed, and humanity's victory was sealed. The Blood Angels breathed a collective, weary relief. But on Baal Secundus, matters were darker. Karbanda, blocked from entering Baal Prime by Mephiston and the others, had been trapped between Holy Terra and the Warp. Only when the Great Rift widened and the Warp storm intensified could he break free. He fell like a meteor onto Baal Secundus and immediately summoned an ocean of Khorne and demons, slaying every living thing as an offering to the Blood God. The Blood Knights warbands stationed there fell under Khorne's aura and were consumed by rage. Captain Joel led the last clear-headed brothers of his company out to challenge Karbanda so the flesh-tearers could evacuate. He bought time with his life and was cut down. A demon hunter battle group led by Zhang Ge was ordered to the surface to encircle and destroy Karbanda, but they were too late. The daemon and his followers fought without ceasing. Tyranids, enraged survivors, and untended humans alike were butchered. Severed heads stacked into 888 piles, towers of skulls rising in tribute as fervent worshippers chanted ancient rites. 8 blood sacrifices stain the throne red, 8-fold praise interprets the war. 8 skull towers exalt the blood god, 8 paths diverge to his holy word, 8 blessings grant ascension, 8 infernal cycles reshape the world, 8 trials forge the path, 8 wheels of ruin sunder time and space. As the ritual progressed, a storm of souls tore open the veil between realms. Etheric winds ripped at Holy Terra and the Warp, shattering space itself. With those sacrifices, Karbanda opened a path to Baal Prime. He had felt the Corpse Emperor's minions intervene in the war, and now came intent on harvesting heads for Khorne. Zhang Ge and his hunters were trapped by uncountable daemons and could do nothing as the greater daemon descended upon Baal Prime. In an instant, the sky over Baal Prime turned a bruised, ugly red. Warp light poured through a gaping rift. Fire answered that call. An indescribable fury rose in the Blood Angels' hearts. Red thirst and black rage answered Khorne's summons, and battle cries became animal roars as eyes bled and controls snapped. A colossal figure, a furnace of flame, stepped through the rift and onto Baal Prime. Khorne's endless tide spewed out at his sides, pouring into the battlefield. Karbanda, Dante roared, trying to keep his temper in check. Normally, the daemon would have acknowledged him, but Karbanda's attention was fixed on Qin Yun high above the battlefield. Qin Yun had activated his protections, rationality aura, and the Emperor's light, to stop Karbanda's bloody glare from corrupting ordinary humans and to keep the Blood Angels from being dragged screaming into hell. Another little angel? A damned toy forged by the Cursed One, Karbanda snarled. Daemon. Qin Yun's voice was cold with killing intent. I know your next line. Banish me in the name of the Cursed One. Isn't that it? Karbanda grinned, full of contempt and a demon's hatred. Silence. Qin Yun did not waste words. He unleashed Dark Word, an implosive, alien power not born of normal psychic technique. The air convulsed, laws and elements twisted, and an invisible force slammed into Karbanda. The greater demon was hurled backward and crashed down, raising a mushroom of dust. Good opportunity, Xiaopang crowed. Greater demons meant huge points. He was piloting a Zaku Type 03 power armor. Kill! The mech's jump pack flared as Xiaopang drove it into the demonic titan. The beam saber, a Rui divine sword, sliced through air and struck for the head. Karbanda, half risen, brought his axe up to block, but the force drove him to a knee. Xiaopang pressed the advantage, attempting to cleave the daemon in two. Karbanda roared and shoved. His muscles bulged as his rage flamed hotter, and with a prodigious shove he threw the mech back. He grew to the size of the suit and charged, axe swinging. The mech staggered, then shattered under the relentless blows. Sparks and fuel mixed with demon blood as the Zaku was torn apart and exploded. Xiaopang's last message in the player's channel cut off mid-sentence. Before anyone could celebrate, Karbanda unfurled his wings and vanished, reappearing on the wind before Qin Yun. The demon's face was a mask of bloody amusement. "Cute little angel," he rumbled. "You have two choices: submit to the god of blood and war, or be utterly destroyed." 174. Dante, the tough guy, is crying, "Demon, you have two choices." Qin Yun leveled the holy judgment blade at Karbanda. Its burning flames warped the air. A holy, commanding voice echoed from behind the weeping mask. "Surrender to the God Emperor, or be soundly beaten by me and cast back into the warp." Karbanda fell silent for a moment. Were the cursed's minions always this arrogant? He'd even dared to consort with kin of the Chaos Gods. If left unchecked, such presumption would lead him to seize the brass throne tomorrow and swagger into the eternal war as a fifth god the day after. That kind of arrogance had to be stamped out. "You inherited your creator's arrogance, little angel. You know nothing of the Chaos God's power," he spat. Qin Yun met him head-on. "And you inherited your master's stupidity. Go tell Korn that the warp doesn't always attack. One day Tzeentch will be stoked by humanity's rage." "Such temper, just like Sanguinius," Qin Yun added. "It seems the god of cowardice sculpted you in the image of his ninth son." Karbanda didn't respond with fury so much as a grin. Thinking of Sanguinius dampened the anger that flared inside him. If that angel had embraced Korn instead of dying on some avenging spirit, they might have been brothers. "Go ask your master. You'll be going back soon enough." Qin Yun unfurled his wings, channeling faith to draw down the Emperor's blessing, then dove at Karbanda. "Come on, I want a proper fight." "I can't wait to taste your blood," Karbanda hissed, hot saliva sliding from obsidian teeth. The two collided. Metal rang on metal as Karbanda swung his brutal axe again and again, each blow threatening to split Baal Secundus itself. Qin Yun parried with the Holy Judgment Blade and the Staff of Divine Retribution, their impact shaking the world. As they fought, Kasareth and other Eldar seers blinked into existence on Baal Secundus. Sons of Sanguinius nearby immediately raised their guns at the Xenos, but Losa and his Star Realm Knights stepped between them. The Saint had personally guaranteed the Eldar's aid. They could not be killed inadvertently while supporting allies. "They are allies of humanity. This was promised by the Saint. Do you intend to fire on our friends?" Losa shouted. "We will never let Xenos set foot on Baal Secundus," one son of Sanguinius barked. "Make them leave, or we will open fire." "Then are the Tyranids an illusion?" Losa gestured at the roaring swarms. "Enemies are allowed on Baal Secundus, but allies are not." The exchange nearly sparked another firefight when Dante arrived and cut through the tension. "Enough. Save this for after the battle. Point your guns at the enemy, not at our people." Dante ordered the sons of Sanguinius to train their weapons on the Tyranids, then looked at Losa and recognized his sigil. "Star Realm Knights, son of Dorn, if these Xenos step out of line, I will punish you alongside them." "The Star Realm Knights do not shirk their duties," Losa replied. With the Knights' protection, Kasareth and the Eldar were free to move. They spread out around Qin Yun and began weaving a psychic array to suppress Karbanda and bind his movements. "Annoying little ones," Karbanda snarled. Furious that the Eldar would meddle in his duel, he surged, throwing Qin Yun backward, then dove toward the Eldar ranks to tear them apart. "Your opponent is me," Qin Yun said as he descended. His Staff of Divine Retribution cracked with lightning. Boom! The bolt struck Karbanda in the back and sent the demon crashing to the ground. "How dare you use those bird people's tricks?" Karbanda roared. "As a warrior, fight honorably." Qin Yun replied coolly. Karbanda scrambled from the pit and howled to the sky. "I'll use whatever I want, unlike you, fool, who just hacks with an axe." Qin Yun pressed the attack and taunted as he moved. "Let your arrogance run, then taste defeat. You're slandering," Karbanda snapped. A memory from Cygnus burned in him, a past humiliation he could not forget. Flames surged, making him look like a living torch as bloody war auras rolled off him. Is that embarrassing, corny greater daemon you speak of? Could it be you? Qin Yun jeered. You're lying, Carbonda bellowed. The shame of Cygnus stoked his flames into a frenzy. He screamed, "Remember Cygnus!" Qin Yun blocked a swinging axe, struck with the staff, and sent a shockwave that tore away the daemon's long whip. He didn't stop talking. He painted the scene in vivid, mocking detail. A corn greater demon humbled by an archangel's knee and reduced to groveling mercy. Qin Yun proposed collecting bards and psychers to broadcast the tale across the warp, titles and all, and he only raised the volume when the demon's anger flared. Carbonda, enraged beyond measure, lashed out. "Are you only able to wag your tongue, coward?" he roared. "I like making you mad," Qin Yun said with a grin, golden light flaring around him to blunt the demon's bloody aura. It shielded the sons of Sanguinius from succumbing to red thirst and black rage. Kassereth and the Eldar seers watched, startled. The Archangel's mouth alone had driven Carbonda into a fury, worthy, they thought, of the Emperor's favored saint. The daemon's rage opened the earth. Cracks split the ground, magma like hot blood gushed up, skulls tumbled in a crimson sea, and daemons howled as they surged into the fray against humans and tyranids alike. The three forces entangled in brutal chaos. The radiance around Qin Yun brightened, holding back Carbonda's influence and protecting the sons of Sanguinius. Mephiston and the other librarians watched with a mix of fear and hope. If Carbonda broke free, all the angel descendants here could be lost to endless rage. The fact that this angel could resist Khorne's sway suggested a profound link to Sanguinius, perhaps even Sanguinius reborn. "Open fire on that daemon," Dante commanded. "We must aid the Archangel." Sons of Sanguinius answered. Bolter rounds shredded Carbonda's twisted flesh. The players and mech alliances from the Hammer and Sickle battle group converged, and monstrous cannons fired shells and beams that tore into Carbonda. Driven back but not broken, the daemon roared for a one-on-one duel, pounding and smashing like a hot-tempered child trying to force Qin Yun out of the array. "Hold the binding! Don't let the daemon escape!" Kassereth shouted, pouring power into the containment. Other prophetic voices chanted ancient spells to steady the weave. On Baal Secundus, even where Carbonda's presence remained, Zhongge and the players pressed on. They cut through daemons, detonated charges, and brought down the skull-built monument that had anchored the warp ritual. As each monument fell, the storm over Baal slumped, the warp's grip loosened. Imperial forces began to mass on the ground. Carbonda, wounded and enraged, neared breaking the array, but every destroyed monument weakened his power and strengthened the binding. His victory slipped away. "I will not fail," he howled. He lashed out with his whip to bind a mech's limbs, then cleaved through thick armor with his burning axe, reducing a massive Zaku to a wreck as he roared his dominance. Qin Yun seized the opening. He circled, struck hard. His flaming blade drove between the demon's wings, shattered the back armor, punched through the cuirass, and plunged into Carbonda's spine to the hilt. Souls and blood erupted. "No!" Carbonda screamed. He flailed, but surging radiance from the holy judgment blade began consuming his terraformed flesh. His wings stilled, limbs rigid. Qin Yun yanked his sword free, grabbed a horn, and with a savage twist, severed the demon's head. The headless body knelt, twitched, then collapsed. When Qin Yun raised Carbonda's skull, Dante and the sons of Sanguinius erupted in triumphant cries. The scourge of the Ninth Legion's bloodline had been executed. Mephiston and the other librarians stared, stunned. The power of this angel far exceeded their expectations. "Guide is incredible. Punching Khorne, kicking Tzeentch, this is just the beginning. Who else could do this? Our work paid off. The guide grows stronger. Keep grinding, brothers. One day the guide will lead us into the warp. We'll be gods if we want. Pick up what we want. Good times are coming. With the guide this strong, maybe even the chaos gods will swap axes for dancing shoes." The players joined in the jubilation. The sight of their excited, sometimes absurd revelry made Qin Yun's mouth twitch. They already dreamed of divinity and dalliance at the mention of the warp. With each destroyed monument, the ritual collapsed. Daemons were driven back, the sky cleared, revealing the torn void and the detritus of the aerial swarm. More Imperial warships arrived in reinforcements, and the tide definitively turned in humanity's favor. The Imperial glory wove through the Tyranid fleet like a blade through flesh. Its volleys tore apart nodes and tipped the battle. As another bioship went down and the Tyranid fleet routed, the swarms that had reached the surface were abandoned. They fled the system. Dante did not pursue. The routed swarms were doomed. There was no need to burn fuel and men on a fruitless chase. Baal and the nearby system lay within the Crimson Scar. Dante ordered an evacuation and purgation of populations on worlds the Tyranids hadn't yet claimed, to deny the swarm any chance to resupply. With nowhere left to replenish, the Tyranids would starve and be trapped in the Scar. Their obsession with Baal had led them into a calculated trap. Forced marches and wasteful biomass usage had left them no path of retreat. The players quickly moved into the looting phase, giddy. Without the hive mind, Tyranids were little more than instinctive beasts, useful as tools against other Xenos. "These guys are like a bunch of perverts," Rasellus grumbled as the god-chosen seized bioships and wrested control of surviving Tyranids. "Don't mock those who've helped us," Mephiston cut him off. "Be grateful. Without them, we would have lost this battle." Dante strode toward Qin Yun, flanked by other chapter masters who wore awe on their faces. Qin Yun stood amid golden radiance, the weeping mask concealing his expression, the holy judgment blade and staff of divine retribution in hand. "Archangel," Dante said, struggling to hold his composure, "you have returned to your sons." "Forgive me," Dante continued, voice breaking. "I gathered every blood warband, but the losses were terrible. Tens of thousands of our sons perished. Baal was left in ruins." Qin Yun reached out. A gentle, holy light washed over Dante. "There is nothing to forgive. You did well, Dante. You held and weakened a massive hive fleet. You saved Baal and this system." Under the eyes of every son of Sanguinius, the holy angel embraced Dante as tears finally broke free. "It's all right. It's over. You didn't fail. You saved everything." P.S. I owed 8 chapters last month. This month's votes reached 500, so I owe you one more chapter. 9 chapters in total, 27,000 words. 175. Who says the Blood Angels can only have one Primarch? The sun sank, painting the desert in a haunting blood red. Corpses littered the vast wasteland like the path to hell. The battle that had brought Baal to the brink was over. Once severed from the hive mind, the Tyranids had fallen into disorganized fragments, no longer the single, unstoppable swarm of before. They fled in all directions, many captured or slaughtered by the players and Imperial forces. Survivors poured out of Angel Keep and began clearing bodies and wrecked war machines from around the fortress. Once a large open area had been secured, Imperial crews began mass landings under the direction of ground personnel. Transport vessels roared in, kicking up dust, unloading engines and reconstruction equipment in waves. Priests of the ecclesiarchy, flanked by choirs, walked across the ravaged fields, sprinkling holy water and chanting scripture to purge the taint of chaos. Adeptus Mechanicus priests and their servitors operated huge engineering rigs, tearing down ruined structures and processing concrete into reusable materials. Qin Yun and a contingent of Blood Angels stood atop the Wall of Axe, watching the reconstruction efforts. Many had died, but those who survived received salvation. Even members of the Death Company, whose minds had been frayed by the Black Rage, had been steadied by Qin Yun's presence. Their madness had subsided. Baal was a ruin. Toppled statues, collapsed cathedrals, blasted keeps. Scarcely a single intact building remained. Paradoxically, the devastation made rebuilding easier. There would be less resistance to reshaping the world from the ground up. This is what Baal will look like after reconstruction. Qin Yun opened a hollow projection for Dante and the others to view. The projection showed a transformed Baal, no longer a desert wasteland but a paradise world fit for human habitation. Orbital radiation shields would block lethal fluxes. Azure oceans, verdant mountains, and elegant civic architecture, an Angel Keep reborn as a real home. "Holy One, will it truly be like this?" Dante asked, the reverence plain in his voice. Whether Qin Yun called himself Sanguinius or simply the Emperor's Holy One, the awe in Dante's tone was unchanged. The weeping mask, the pure white wings, the ability to suppress the black rage and the red thirst, whatever Qin Yun's true identity, to the Blood Angel's descendants, he was a light of salvation. their Primarch incarnate. Anyone who challenged him would find Dante and his chapter ready with axes. Yes, we can no longer leave Baal a hell for its people. Qin Yun replied softly. They sacrificed for the Emperor, for the Great Angel, and for Baal. They deserve reward, not punishment. People raised in hell will never choose hell, Dante. He looked at the Blood Angel's chapter master. This was the Emperor's and the Great Angel's intention, but it was never fulfilled before Horus betrayed us. Now we have the means to realize it. Will you refuse? Seth, chapter master of the Flesh Tears, narrowed his eyes at Dante, considering whether a left hook or a right would be required if Dante refused. As a leader of the Blood Angels, arrogance came with the office. Refuse the Holy One, and your life could become uncertain. The Blood Angels will follow your will, Dante said. I knew you wouldn't disappoint me. Let us rebuild Baal and make it a true angel keep, Qin Yun answered. On the other side of the battlefield, tens of thousands of Tyranids had been herded into a vast circular pit by the players of the Emperor Numa battle group. Cut off from the hive mind, the creatures had lost much of their single-minded ferocity. Facing human guns and artillery, they were agitated but failed to resist. Fear of death is a universal instinct. Without the psychic compulsion of the hive mind, even those monstrous bodies fled before it. The players, therefore, had little trouble guiding swarms far larger than themselves into a makeshift prison. With the right method, the Tyranid swarm isn't hard to handle, the War Master said with a grin as he surveyed the pit. So many Tyranids. This haul was a jackpot. Tyranid units, especially if implanted with controllers, were in demand. They could be sold to other players or even to the Imperial forces as expendable cannon fodder. Don't underestimate how fast the Tyranids evolve, Shi Lang warned. Next time, they'll come up with counters. The Tyranids' evolutionary rate was terrifying. After each engagement, the hive mind would adapt, find new tactics. What worked in one battle might fail the next. For now, we won, Haigui said with a grin. They can evolve, but so can we. Exactly. They'll improve, but we improve faster. Wan Lao nodded. Once we develop superweapons, planetary annihilators, these things will be trivial. War Master clasped his hands theatrically. Brothers, pray with me. Thank you, Tyranid Hive, for your gift. Thank you, Brother Hive. May you live 100 years. Is live 100 years a curse for Tyranids? Haigui asked weakly. Absolutely, Ningba Ren replied. It's like wishing a billionaire an annual income of 1 million. Shut up, you nitpickers, the War Master snapped. I at least offered a prayer. You lot only care about profit, no gratitude, Ningba Ren retorted. If the hive mind heard you, it'd probably beg you to stop praying, Wan Lao joked. Shi Lang cut in. Focus. First, sell these Tyranids. Right. Take photos, list them, wait for bids, Ningba Ren said, already setting up. A few servo skulls fitted with high-definition optics swept the pit, filming every angle. Ningba Ren uploaded the footage to the Interstellar Trading Platform. Thanks to the Instant Communication Network and the Guide's support for commerce, a cross-system marketplace now existed. Sellers could upload product information. Buyers could place orders and pay a down payment to the platform, which guaranteed transactions until final receipt. The platform had been built by the Imperial Bank, merchant guilds, and the Calixis regional government. Its reputation was solid. Even if someone was cheated, the platform's enforcement could recover losses. When the players saw the new marketplace in-game, a flurry of excited messages erupted. For many, it was proof of how real this 100% realistic simulation could be. Anything you could imagine could be realized, be it technology bounded by physics or the supernatural possibilities of the warp. An interstellar marketplace was a natural next step. The platform was new and sparse, mostly players selling weapons, equipment, and now captured Tyranids. But many players already saw opportunity. Express delivery companies, logistics, transport, services that could become phenomenally profitable in the new Warhammer OL economy. That Tyranid Prime is worth a lot. It'll fetch a good price, Shi Lang said, eyeing the largest specimen. A Tyranid Prime is a living titan, a field commander of the swarm, its size and power comparable to an Imperial Titan. Its body bristles with chitin, tendrils, and living weaponry. It absorbs enemy fire, breaks lines, and its wounds spray toxic spores. Besides claws and stingers, it bears 2 biocannons that fire living projectiles in corrosive mist, projectiles that melt plasteel, concrete, flesh, and bone within seconds. "Let me check current offers," Haigui said, snapping photos of the Prime and uploading them for a market query. His expression grew grave within moments. "The market's collapsing," he said. The Prime's price dropped from 250,000 to 150,000. At the end of the Flyleaf Star campaign, a Tyranid Prime fetched as much as 300,000. During the Orc fight, it spiked to 500,000. It had settled near 250,000 because it was essentially a living titan with high damage and low upkeep. You fed it, and it ate almost anything. Some players even considered farming orcs as feedstock, until they realized it wasn't cost-effective. "No, why is it still falling?" Ningba Ren's voice tightened. "How low is it now?" "Unbelievable," another player muttered. "A Prime for 97,000? Quoted at 97,400 contribution points. What is this cabbage pricing? Wasn't it 150,000 a moment ago? How did it plunge like this?" Warmaster, Shishi Lang, and the others were stunned. A Tyranid Prime for under 100,000? Even a stripped-down Adeptus Mechanicus Titan would be worth more as salvage. "This crash is too fast." Shishi Lang frowned. "Is someone manipulating the market?" "Check the World Channel," Ningba Ren said. "The MC Dynasty just announced a major biotech breakthrough." Everyone switched to the global chat. It was buzzing. The MC Dynasty used their captured Norn Queen to breed Tyranids. No wonder prices plunged. They can mass-produce them now. "My debts, this is bad. I thought this war would make me rich. Now, I'm ruined. I'll have to grind more." If they can mass-produce, and Baal's crawling with these things, prices are going to be crushed. Everyone's catching and selling. Buyers will drive prices down. Warmaster stared at the chat. They were fast. "They're not just players. MC Dynasty knows finance," Shishi Lang said, smiling coldly. "Their timing was deliberate. They announced this right as the battle here ended. I don't believe it's coincidence. They had to have prepared in advance. And even if they can breed Tyranids, how many could they produce quickly?" the Warmaster asked. "That's the point," Shishi Lang said. "They release the news to suppress prices, buy up stock cheaply, then later offload at a profit. It's classic market play." "So much scheming over a game," Ningba Ren exclaimed. "This isn't wickedness, it's market logic," Shishi Lang replied. "Warhammer OL claims 100% realism, so commerce will be real too. People will buy low and sell high. For players, these Tyranids are extra income with no upkeep cost. Even at suppressed prices, they can still profit. Many will be eager to cash out." "What should we do? Sell now?" the Warmaster asked. "Not yet. The price will rebound." Shishi Lang shook his head. "There's real demand. Imperial forces will need cannon fodder. The platform's still immature with few NPC buyers, which is why MC Dynasty can press prices now. Eventually, the official side will add more NPC forces to the market and stabilize demand. Wait it out. We have plenty of corpses to feed these creatures. No rush." "Then let's hold them and sell when prices recover," Warmaster agreed. The others supported the decision. "Also," Shishi Lang added, "Baal has a lot of ruins. If we can excavate the right places, we might make another fortune." "Excavating ruins?" Warmaster stroked his chin. "Baal hasn't been developed. If there are relics, they could be worth a lot." With the Tyranid market in turmoil, the Emperor Nyuma battle group shifted focus to scavenging Baal's ruins. If they could find relics or salvage, they'd turn a tidy profit, more certain than gambling on a volatile Tyranid market. "Madam, you wouldn't want anything to happen to your child, would you?" Qin Yun had shared the Primaris upgrades he'd acquired with Dante, allowing the chapter master to begin rebuilding the shattered warbands so they could once again serve the Imperium. The losses from the Baal campaign had been catastrophic. 8 warbands wiped out entirely, and many more reduced to 1 or 2 veterans. Reconstruction would be impossible without supplementing them with warriors grown from the Blood Angels gene seed and upgraded with Primaris technology. Only by making Primaris common could those devastated warbands be restored. Primaris technology was refined over 10,000 years by Archmagos Belisarius Call, Qin Yun explained. He combined the Emperor's original Astartes science with knowledge salvaged from the original mother stock. The result grants greater strength, higher speed, longer endurance, and vastly deadlier combat performance. "Not just the Blood Angels," he added. Other warbands will also adopt Primaris. Robut Gaiman, our regent on Terra and Primarch of the Ultramarines, intends to use it to help reclaim the galaxy for humanity. To ease Dante's doubts, Qin Yun brought him aboard the Imperial Glory and arranged a direct link to Terra. When Guilliman's projection appeared against the backdrop of Terra, Dante's face went slack with astonishment. The Saint and the Primarch had access to such advanced, warp-independent real-time comms. Dante, who had fought through countless campaigns, knew better than most the advantage that secure communication offered in war. If Baal had had this kind of connection, the Tyranid threat might never have unilaterally overwhelmed them. "You always surprise me, Saint," Guilliman said with an almost embarrassed understatement. "Your diligence shames me." "You reversed the decline in the Calixis sector and saved Baal," Dante replied. "You were dealing with those damned bureaucrats, while I could only watch from Terra," Guilliman said, smiling wryly. His manner was unexpectedly humane, not the stern gravitas many assumed of the regent. Dante felt his tension ease. "Each of us has our duty, Regent," Qin Yun said. "Yours is to preserve the Imperium. Mine is to find ways to make it stronger. If you'd simply stuck to the paperwork, I might never have endured unscathed," Guilliman replied. He laughed then. "Saint, you always know how to put me at ease." Qin Yun stepped aside and gestured for Dante to appear before the projection so the comm system could transmit his image. "This is Dante, chapter master of the Blood Angels. He and his chapter just endured a brutal campaign, defending their homeworld with terrible sacrifice." Guilliman regarded Dante gravely. "I've heard of Baal. You fought Leviathan's tendrils and prevailed. That is welcome news for the Imperium. Dante, you did exceptionally well. The Emperor and Sanguinius would be proud. Countless citizens will remember your sacrifices." Dante returned the salute. "It was our duty, Primarch." "Don't be overly formal," Guilliman said. "Although I stand on Terra, I know the campaign through the Saint. No one could have done better. Baal will be rebuilt. When the Lighthouse Network binds it firmly to Terra, we can marshal all our strength against chaos." "I would be honored to see such a future," Dante said. "My primary purpose in this communion is to inquire about Primaris Astartes." "Call improved the original design," Guilliman explained. "Primaris are stronger, more suited to modern battlefields. Since the Great Rift, chaos has grown in power and influence. If we remain conservative and refuse change, humanity's future will be smothered in darkness." Guilliman's reasoning, delivered with calm eloquence, swayed Dante. After the projection ended, Dante returned to Angel Keep, now a ruin under reconstruction, and summoned representatives of the surviving warbands. Dante, resplendent in his golden armor, laid out the plan plainly. Primaris augmentation would be used to rebuild each warband. The announcement stirred concern. "The Astartes are the Emperor's gift," the representative of the Holy Angels warband objected. "Does Guilliman have the right to meddle with the Emperor's work? What if he uses this as a first step?" Murmurs spread through the chamber. Guilliman was the only living Primarch. His prestige was terrifying. If he ever sought to supplant the Emperor, who could stop him? "That's nonsense," Seth cut in coldly. He was the Flesh-Tearer's chapter master, and he held a chain axe in a grip that made his point for him. "The Saint is not a tool of Guilliman." The representative's words died under Seth's glare. Seth led the Flesh-Tearers and the Blood Knights warband at Baal Secundus. He had watched comrades fall into the Black Rage and Red Thirst. Only the relic of Sanguinius and the Saint's leadership had pulled them back from damnation. The Blood Knights had not been as fortunate. Their corruption had been nearly complete, and only a last, desperate charge had kept them from becoming servants of chaos. Seth would never forget that sight. "You accuse the Saint?" he said. "If you doubt him, step forward. I will duel you, one-on-one." Silence answered him. No one in that hall would take up arms against a brother over such a question. Seth lowered his weapon with a grim smile. "Then spare us these words. The Astartes Codex has never said the Blood Angels may only have one Primarch," Dante observed quietly. "Since no one objects, we will proceed. We will promote Primaris conversion and coordinate aid from Terra." "We will reforge the Legion of Blood," Dante declared. "Restore the Archangel's glory, and let the Saint's name echo across the galaxy." On board the Imperial Glory, Qin Yun did not disembark with Dante. He returned to the control room to claim his mission rewards. The ship's log updated. Limited time mission. Assist the Blood Angels chapter in resisting the Leviathan fleet. Completed. Faith value reward issued. Claim at the Praying Sanctuary. As he prepared to go, a golden panel shimmered on his console. Congratulations. Experience gained. Level 17. Level 18. Comprehended skill. Combat focus. In this state, the host's attention narrows to razor-sharp combat perception, combined with premonitory flashes, producing terrifying martial effectiveness. Comprehended skill. Multitasking allows the host to handle multiple complex tasks simultaneously. Applied to governance or battlefield command, it can be devastatingly efficient. Comprehended skill. Space mastery permits distortion of spatial dimensions for concealment and attack. Versatile, but requires further development. Qin Yun grinned despite himself. Making me an all-rounder who can fight and manage. Perfect. Then his thoughts went sideways. Damn it, Emperor, are you trying to milk one sheep dry? I'll go bald from this. One corner of his mind supplied a sillier worry. If he could warp space, he could wear a storage ring and pose like some sorcerer drawing circles. And the more he thought about magic, the more his imagination wandered to odd comparisons. Who would win in a fight, Tzeentch or Doctor Strange? Tzeentch versus Scarlet Witch? The cosmic horror of Tzeentch made those matchups look absurd. Qin Yun pictured the ruinous god holding Scarlet Witch's children aloft and crooning, "Madam, you wouldn't want anything to happen to your children, would you?" He didn't like where that image led and quickly shoved it away. A new announcement then filled his visor. You have reached level 18, conditions met for a second awakening. He remembered Ol Person, the Emperor's first war master, telling him in the City of Dust that something had been reserved for him. A hot surge raced through Qin Yun's limbs as the latent power from that place reasserted itself, reshaping him. The change seemed to happen in an instant, and yet, as if time had been stretched, he felt every molecule settle and strengthen. When it was over, he was unmistakably more robust. Raw power thrummed beneath his skin. Level 18 is when a player advances to Primaris and undergoes a second awakening, he concluded. That explains a lot. I must have logged too many dungeon crawls. Stretching his newly solid muscles, Qin Yun decided to find Shieling to have his strength assessed and to talk over other matters. On Baal's surface, Xiao Pang, resurrected and now dejected, strode quickly into Angel Keep and sought out Chaplain Audemars. Welcome, God Chosen. How may I assist? Audemars asked. I need to submit the Reclaiming Thirstwater mission and pick up a new assignment, Xiao Pang said. Audemars keyed his holo interface, registered the God Chosen's ID, and assigned the task. A mission prompt blinked into Xiao Pang's database. Mission: assist the Blood Angels chapter in locating surviving civilians. Though the Battle of Baal had ended, relief and aftermath work remained. The Blood Angels were short-handed. The God Chosen are requested to check on surviving mortals. Base reward: 24,000 contribution points, 7,000 honor points, 12,000 faith points. Bonus: determined by performance or discovery of corrupted targets. Audemars watched Xiao Pang go and shook his head in awe. These God-chosen work so hard. Their loyalty to the Emperor shames us all, he murmured. Thirstwater was a strange organism on Baal Prime and its moons. It looked like water, but offered no sustenance. Instead, it drained moisture from anything it touched. The Blood Angels had piled what thirst water they could find into the moat around Angel Keep. When a Tyrannid crossed it, their fluids were sucked away. It was a lethal defense, and no one wanted to handle it. But the God-chosen took the task. In return for such peril, they earned contribution points, honor points, faith points, and used relics to redeem equipment from the throne. Audemars had not expected much interest in such dangerous, thankless work, but seeing the players diligently accumulate points to buy gear and better serve the Emperor moved him. What kind of devotion was this? Far from Angel Keep, in a barren mountain range on Baal, a gunship's engines shattered the silence. The Emperor Numa battle group and other player warbands had split the Tyrannid spoils and now turned to tomb raiding the planet's ruins. Under the pretense of inspection, Shi Si Lang had even slipped into the Blood Angels library and found old texts that hinted at buried treasures. Armed with those clues and their scanning gear, The raiders set out into the desert and found a ruin that had not been opened in millennia. The mountain held ancient structures, still radiating lethal levels of radiation. Even after 10,000 years, weather had not fully eroded the alien architecture. The players probed and finally found an entrance into the mountain's interior. Whether by luck or the Emperor's grace, the chamber they entered appeared untouched. At the end of the passage lay a heavy door. Two almost life-sized angelic figures were carved upon it, one traced in gold, the other in black, both kneeling before an angel king seated on a throne, a laurel wreath crowning him. Golden Angel, Dark Angel, and the Angel King, Ningba Ren muttered as he studied the relief. What could it mean? The War Master asked, looking to Shichi Lang. Shichi Lang considered the iconography, then offered a possibility. Have you ever wondered how demons are born? They are the echoes of deeds performed on Holy Terra, manifestations in the warp. If primordial deeds and belief can shape entities. Hai Gui chimed in. The echoes of sanctity and sin made manifest in the warp, demons and angels born of mortal acts. Shichi Lang paced and finally said, I think the Golden Angel could be Saint Gelino. The Dark Angel looks like the embodiment of the red thirst and the black rage. The Angel King, Sanguinius. Every world has its power, he continued. Primarchs shape worlds, and worlds shape Primarchs. When Saint Geleno gave himself for Sanguinius, he reached apotheosis, became angelic. The Dark Angel is still taking form, a prophecy carved by the first colonists of Baal. The lines the characters had read on the wall recited that ancient prophecy, preserved through the ages. As the team stood before the sealed door, it was clear they had stumbled onto something old and important, something that might explain the mythic past of Baal and the strange, terrible forces that had been born from it. 177. Genetic Ascension in the Golden Age. The corridor ran deep and silent, leading down into the underground. The HUD on each helmet flashed warnings and numbers. Radiation levels had long since exceeded what an unprotected human could survive. Not even a space marine could remain 10 minutes in that air without power armor. It was hard to imagine how many warheads the people of Baal had detonated during the Age of Strife to leave their world so irradiated even after all this time. The players of the Emperor Numa battle group stood before a massive door at the end of the passage. You said there's good stuff in there? Shichi Lang asked. War Master's eyes lit up with interest. There was no fear in them of the unknown, only hunger for whatever the dungeon hid. No one would stop him from getting the rewards, not even Cthulhu. He strode up to the door and knocked with his fist. The sound was a dull thud. The door's sturdiness was obvious. Breaking it down would take real effort. How do we open it? Ningba Ren asked. Look for a switch or an identity reader nearby, King of Mountain Blade suggested. The players began scanning the stone walls and ground. The environment showed no traces of electronics. The passage was all rock. This game's pursuit of realism is ridiculous, Hai Gui murmured. They treat every little detail like it matters. Even for a tiny ruined dungeon, the players have to figure out how to open the door themselves, Wan Lao added. It's more immersive than those so-called escape rooms on Holy Terra. I never got why escape rooms are fun, Ningba Ren said. I tried one and felt like I'd wasted my life. It's because most of them are cheap, cramped spaces, shoddy props, zero immersion, Wan Lao complained. Once you clear one, there's no reason to replay it. The second time I went, I just looked for the key. Shichi Lang scanned the wall while chatting. Warhammer OL is conscientious. Given the devs' usual behavior, this is probably a one-time dungeon. Once it's cleared, it's gone, no repetition. Minutes of searching turned up nothing. No switches, no keyholes. The doorway was seamless. Damn, are we supposed to solve a riddle? Wan Lao groaned. There isn't even a puzzle here. Looks like a dead end. Let's go get the excavator, Hai Gui suggested. If the drill's strong enough, there's no secret room that can't be forced open. There's no tomb-riding spirit left in you, Ningba Ren said. If you just smash everything, where's the fun? Somebody made a dungeon for a reason. Next time, they'll stop bothering with puzzles and just seal things in meters of steel and concrete, Wan Lao said. You'll have to dismantle it layer by layer. The real tomb-writing guys are all in jail writing novels now, Hai Gui shot back, rolling his eyes. War Master stepped between them. This game claims to be 100% realistic. Breaking it is possible, but if the devs went to the trouble of building a dungeon like this, we might get low rewards or trigger penalties for forcing it, explosions, traps, or worse. Breaking it open could get us hurt. Solving the puzzle is the safest and most cost-efficient way. The key has to be the patterns on the door, Shi Lang said. The Golden Angel, the Black Angel, and the Angel King, those three are linked to the Blood Angels. Warmaster peered more closely at the carvings. Do these three angels confirm the idea of planet souls in the Warhammer universe? The three angels predate humanity on Baal, Shi Lang said, so whatever they represent must be an aspect of the world itself that would show up no matter who later lived here. Wan Lao brightened. Planet souls? Like a world soul. Like Warcraft's world soul? The planet is a shell that carries something inside? Not entirely wrong, Shi Lang nodded. Official lore hints that Imperial heroes can draw on the power of their homeworlds. Space wolves and salamanders have rune priests and librarians who commune with their world to unleash abilities. When Vulcan was resurrected, Nocturne's will communicated with him, so a world soul concept could exist. Could we receive blessings from a world soul someday? Wan Lao scratched his head. Too bad for me. Angron's world was destroyed. The lion wrecked Nuceria. You're getting off topic, Warmaster cut in. Our priority is getting inside. Jug, an Iron Warriors player, stood silent, studying the patterns. This angel motif is the puzzle, and it's the answer, he said, thinking through the implications. He removed his wrist armor, took out a knife, and sliced his palm. He pressed his bleeding hand to the door's carved Angel King. The sight that followed stunned everyone. The blood did not run downward. Instead, it traced the grooves of the Angel King, outlining a crimson figure. The blood was pulled into the carving and absorbed. The bloody Angel King lit up, transmuting into a vision of a holy angel with radiant white wings. The Golden Angel and the Black Angel in the relief seemed to come alive and kneel before the Angel King in eternal fealty. With a grinding noise, the heavy door slowly opened, revealing a pitch-black hall as deep and blank as an abyss. Players' eyes widened. They clustered around Juge, offering thumbs up and admiration. How did you think of that? Shi Lang asked. Juge explained his reasoning. The Angel King motif corresponded to Sanguinius. The Golden Angel evoked Saint Geleno. The Black Angel suggested the Red Thirst and Black Rage. But those specific blood angels hadn't appeared when the door was carved, which meant the creator wasn't pointing at a named faction. The pattern had to signify something more fundamental, something any sentient species living on Baal would recognize. If the maker intended the door to be opened by later generations, they would use a sign that any inhabitant could interpret. There isn't even a keyhole, Juge said. If fangs or other implements were intended, there would be a place for them. By eliminating the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. The motif is connected to blood angels, but it predates them. That points to a trait that inevitably appears when life on this world is exposed to whatever that angel represents. Blood. The key is blood. Warmaster clapped slowly. Amazing. Even if I don't get all the details, that was brilliant. Others echoed his praise. That's right. Awesome is all that matters. I don't understand everything, but shouting praise is correct. Jude, you're amazing. From now on, riddle solving in these dungeons is your job. They stepped into the hall. It was utterly black. Without their armor lights, they could see nothing. The Warmaster engaged his power armor's vision modes and made out row upon row of densely packed cylindrical pods. Dormant machines lined the chamber like a field of tombstones. Cultivation pods? The Warmaster guessed. It looks like a Golden Age gene lab, Ning Baren said. Shi Lang frowned. I feel psionic energy. Whatever they were doing here was blasphemous. They approached a pod. Through reinforced glass, an experimental subject floated in nutrient solution, vaguely human in form, but grotesque. Its skull was swollen and covered with bone. White bony spikes jutted from the back of its head. Hollow eye sockets, a maw of sharp teeth, exposed ribs, and powerful, overdeveloped limbs gave it a nightmarish aspect. Bone spurs erupted from its back like white, malformed wings. Brothers, there's documentation, Warmaster called. Everyone gathered. They scanned and translated portions of the files. The title read, Project Gene Ascension. A hush fell. The translated record made the horror clear. The Golden Age scientists had attempted to harness the power of something called the Black Angel and graft it into humans. Using technological processes, they tried to project mythic power into flesh, accelerating evolution. The results were terrifying. Subjects gained obscene strength, speed, and regenerative capacity, but they also became monstrous and savage. Experiments proliferated across the planet, and then containment failed. During the Age of Strife, the warp flared, and the machinery that kept the labs secure broke down. Mutant subjects poured out, overwhelmed cities, butchered civilians, and adapted rapidly. One mutant had proclaimed, "We are gods. Baal shall be ours, not you ants." Humanity answered with fire. To stop the mutants, they deployed scorched earth policies, repeatedly cleansing Baal and its moons until paradise was ash. That is why Baal's radiation levels are so extreme. Victory came at the cost of turning the planet into a wasteland. No wonder the Emperor feared the tech priests, Ningba Ren said. These experiments really court disaster. They were still absorbing the account when a sudden bang cut through the hall. Everyone snapped to attention, bolt guns raised. "One of the pods is ruptured," Shi Long said, watching nutrient solutions spill from the cracked glass. A roar rolled out of the darkness. Two scarlet eyes glinted with murderous intent. Then more thuds. Bang, bang, bang. The sleepers woke. Pods shattered, and twisted figures surged free, dripping fluid, smelling of chemical preservatives and rot. Their flesh was pallid and bloated from immersion, but the muscle beneath was dense and strong. They moved with terrifying speed. "You know the devs are having fun with us," someone muttered. Chainswords revved, bolt guns barked. The hall erupted into a brutal, close-quarters slaughter as players fought the awakened monstrosities. The mutant creatures leapt, struck, and recovered with uncanny resilience. The players cut and burned and spilled blood in the dim, echoing chamber. Achoo! On the Imperial glory, Qin Yun sneezed and instinctively rubbed his nose. "I'm on par with a Primarch, and I still catch a cold?" "Master is fine. It's just a normal sneeze," Shieling said from the side. "Master, any more corrections to the 11th batch of player names?" "No," Qin Yun waved a hand. "Recruit according to the list." "Understood, Master." Shieling's projection vanished. Achoo! Qin Yun sneezed again, frowning. "Someone bad-mouthing me?" He shook off the irritation. "Never mind. I need to go claim the rewards. I haven't received the kit for saving Baal yet." He stepped toward the praying sanctuary to collect the reward for completing the Saving Baal quest. Author's note: there will be another update tonight. I'll strive to write 6,000 words to explain more about Baal. Some of the settings here are fan-made and not meant to follow official lore exactly. Sorry, I can only manage up to 10,000 words a day right now, but I will make up the ode chapters. I'll do a big update when I'm in better shape. 178. We found a toaster. Qin Yun gave the Aquila salute to the Emperor's statue in the praying sanctuary and bowed his head in prayer. As his praises echoed beneath the dome, a glowing portal opened underfoot. Two cherubim with beating wings flew through it, carrying a metal case. The anti-grav turbines embedded in their hulls whirred softly. The case was embossed with the double-headed eagle and filigreed with flame motifs. The cherubim set it before Qin Yun. "Your mission was excellently completed, God chosen," one rasped. "He is very pleased. Please continue to fulfill the missions bestowed." "I will do my best," Qin Yun replied. The cherubim lingered only a moment, then beat their wings and vanished back through the portal. Qin Yun placed his hand on the case. Light flowed from his palm along the engraved patterns until the eagle and the flames glowed. Gears clicked, pistons hissed, the sound of a lock disengaging filled the air. The case opened slowly to reveal its cargo, a golden iron halo resting on velvet. A golden display sprang up, projecting information about the relic. Name: Angelic Iron Halo, Epic. Part of the Space Marine's armory and an ancient badge of honor, this relic is worn only by those who have shown extraordinary initiative or courage. It projects a powerful deflection field capable of repelling high-velocity projectiles and energy beams, allowing the wearer to survive intense hail. For a Space Marine who fights without a helmet and with the Emperor's gaze upon him, this is standard issue. Everyone in the world is the Emperor's coin, but with this, you become the Emperor's gold. "Not bad," Qin Yun said wryly. "My head's chances of staying attached just went up." He picked up the halo. It was normally reserved for veterans of at least company captain rank. A nearby servitor assisted as he fitted the device to the interface port on his power armor. The halo activated with a barely audible hum. A faint, divine glow formed a ring behind his head, giving him the look of some mythic figure. Players entering and leaving the sanctuary stopped in their tracks. Whoa, Guide got new gear again? He's unreal. Why does he speak like he's from Treasure Island? He's so handsome I could cry. These devs are biased. NPCs getting all the toys. Brothers, unite. We demand wings and iron halos. I can't handle him. I want his babies. Sister, think of what happened to the mouse hole that resisted the drill. You're disgusting. You mean, I really like him? Shut up. I'd never. The crowd buzzed and laughed, drooling over the charismatic figure. Qin Yun ignored them. After a moment of admiring the halo, he boarded a gunship and left the Imperial Glory for Angel Keep on Baal's surface. Angel Keep was alive with reconstruction. Massive engineering rigs reshaped the shattered fortress, while players and mechanical priests drove hunting machines across the plains, corralling the thirsty ones into controlled zones to prevent ecological collapse. Purification teams scrubbed high-radiation sites down to habitable levels. Climate regulators as large as mountains moderated Baal's torrid weather. Where scorched earth had been, lakes and green woodlands began to return. If rebuilding continued, Baal would become habitable again within years. The shuttle touched down on the landing pad, and Dante approached with a squad of Blood Angels. The moment Qin Yun disembarked, the Blood Angels snapped to salute. Saint! Saint! Relax, Qin Yun waved them off. How's primarisation going? Unanimously approved, Dante replied. Unanimously? Qin Yun's surprise was real. Chapter Master Seth didn't object? He not only didn't object, he enthusiastically supported everything you decreed, Dante said. He pledged that the flesh-tearers would carry out and enforce every policy. Qin Yun felt a chill. The flesh-tearers were famously resistant to primarisation. They had loudly questioned whether such reforms were even the will of Guilliman. Now they were eager collaborators. Something odd had happened. Qin Yun's first instinct blamed outside corruption, Tzeentch's influence, the blue-feathered tricksters. But he dismissed the thought. He had been present and blessed by the Emperor. They could not have been corrupted without his knowledge. There had to be another explanation. Agreement is for the best, Qin Yun said. We'll press ahead with primarisation quickly. I'll send a contingent of Sanguinius' sons, Dante offered. They're powerful, yet still blank slates. You can imprint your traditions on them. Thank you, Qin Yun said. Once Baal is rebuilt, I must go to Terra. Dante paled. A stranger, blank fear, tightened his face. You're leaving Baal? I promised the Primarch I would return to Terra to help push through deep reforms, Qin Yun explained. You can finish the work here. The Imperial Glory can relay your will to Terra. Dante hesitated. The Imperium Nihilus needs someone to oversee the broader picture. If you leave, what will happen to worlds in torment? Imperial citizens in despair need your salvation. He left unsaid the thought that cut deeper. If you leave, who will help us fight the Black Rage and the Red Thirst? The sons of Sanguinius had already lost one father. They could not lose another. This reform matters. Humanity's future depends on it, Qin Yun said calmly. I must be on Terra to ensure it is carried out without sabotage. The Imperium Nihilus does need a steward, Dante admitted. Guilliman and I have discussed it. We think you are the best candidate. I intend to appoint you regent of the Imperium Nihilus, Qin Yun cut in. You will command Imperial forces north of the Great Rift. Dante's expression shifted from doubt to conflict. He was old, and the weight of command was heavy. I am aged, Saint. Are you saying you're retiring? Qin Yun asked. He saw through Dante's hesitation. The old Primarch pupil flushed. Perhaps both, Dante muttered. The sons of Sanguinius are plagued by the Black Rage and the Red Thirst. Without you, how many will fall? Don't worry, Qin Yun said. My methods act like a reset. Those deeply afflicted can be returned to a pre-symptom state. With periodic return to my side, we can effectively manage the Red Thirst and the Black Rage. The Imperium has instant communication tech now. Once developed further, we can link the galaxy tightly. Also, I can appear beside any god chosen at will. Even from Terra, I can return to Baal in an instant. After lengthy persuasion, Dante accepted. He was the better choice, seasoned in battle, able to command troops and implement reforms, capable of saving hopeless worlds and enforcing order. With him in charge of both military and economic levers, dissent would be crushed decisively. In the sanctuary hall of Angel Keep, survivors and refugees waited in orderly lines for inspection. Tyrannid contamination was pervasive. Anyone who had fought without proper protection might carry biocorruption. Precautions were strict. Yuji shivered in the queue. The day was hot, but cold crawled through him, as if something moved beneath his skin. His simple-minded son, Teals, called out, "Dad, Daddy!" The nickname made Yuji snap. "Don't call me that, you idiot," he barked. Teals flinched and looked down. The sharpness in Yuji's voice vanished as quickly as it had come. He hugged his son close. "It'll be fine. If anything happens to me, you must go back and sell water properly. Don't go off on adventures. I want you to live well." Yuji was rough and impatient, but he did not dislike his son. He hated his own helplessness. 2 years ago, Teals had been smart and strong. They had lived in Angel's Descent, a town built around a pilgrimage statue of Sanguinius. The family made a living selling water, precious on Desert Baal too. When Teals was chosen by the Angels and returned damaged, Yuji borrowed to pay for treatments that never worked. The wife died. His mother-in-law succumbed to cancer. Every time he saw Teal's vacant smile, Yuji thought, "It's my failure that ruined them." He took out that guilt on the boy. Weeks earlier, when the Angels mustered to meet the Tyrannid swarm, Yuji and Teals had been conscripted. They were used as bait to lure the water-hungry monsters into moats where the creatures would die attempting to absorb the water. Yuji's mother-in-law had chosen to take Baal 2's lethal toxins to end her remaining months. Teals, though no longer clever, remained kind and loyal. Several times he had saved Yuji's life. Now the inspectors called them. No corruption, still a gene adapter, previously selected, eliminated due to minor brain trauma, treatable, recommend recruitment. The priest smiled at Teals. "Congratulations, you'll become an angel." Teals' face lit up like a child's. "Father, did you hear? I'm going to be an angel." Yuji felt a pang of shame for his past cruelty. "I'll be proud of you," he said, and meant it. Teals beamed as he had as a child, unchanged in the ways that mattered. In that moment, Yuji swore silently that he would be a better man. Then the machine printed Yuji's verdict. Tyrannid organic contamination, purification required. Fate turned on him cruelly. Just when he wanted to make amends, the chance vanished. "I'm sorry, Teals. Live well," were the only words he could manage as the purification team took him away. Teals tried to follow, but a priest gently held him back. "This is an act of mercy. He does not want you to see him die. Come with me, get treatment, be my brother," he heard Yuji say as he was led off. Teals watched his father go, tears in his eyes. Then a twist arrived. Those marked for purification were gathered together. Xiao Pang, supervisor of the inspections, addressed them. "You have another choice. The MC dynasty needs infected subjects for experiments," he said to the NPCs. "Step forward and you will go to the MC dynasty laboratories. There is a chance to survive and possibly gain power." Yuji stepped forward. Whatever the cost, the experiments offered hope. Perhaps one day he could see Teals again. Deep beneath Baal, in the dim ruins of the Golden Age, only muzzle flashes and bolter fire pierced the gloom. Bolter rounds hammered into xenomorph flesh with a relentless rhythm, bang, 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 tearing limbs free and leaving a spray of blood and bone. Players worked in tight formation, bolters from distance, chainswords up close. The monsters were fierce and clawed with lethal proficiency, but they fought as individuals, not as a coordinated force. That single weakness allowed the players to clear the hall by cooperation. They pushed deeper, through a dark corridor into a vast laboratory. One gene pod stood in the center, labeled 0. "This has to be the boss," War Master said. Inside Pod 0, a larger, more grotesque mutant slept, plated in bone and bearing a pair of black wings. "Should we plan something?" Ningbaren asked. "Plan? Rush it," replied Wan Lao with a shrug. "In this game, even a greater demon can be taken down by bolter fire. How hard can this be?" "Be cautious," War Master warned. He placed Shi Si Lang and Ningbaren with riot shields in front, pointing out firing lanes. Wan Lao and others spread out to avoid being wiped by one attack. War Master stepped forward. The pod's indicator flared. The creature inside woke. Psychic energy roared from it. With a shattering boom, the pod burst. Such powerful psychic energy! Shi Lang exclaimed. The mutant unfolded, crimson-eyed and full of contempt. Its wings fleshed out like black asphalt, feathers hard as blades. Ants, feel the power of a new age. I am God, it bellowed. The players didn't tremble. In their eyes were greed and curiosity, not fear. To the mutant, their lack of reverence was infuriating. Kill them, then seize the surface. Build a dynasty. The world would be ruled by God. The creature unleashed a blood-red shield and whipped its wing weapons. But the players were stronger than it expected. Faster, more resilient, their weapons devastating. Some even wielded abilities that cracked the creature's defenses. After a fierce fight, the mutant had killed a few attackers, but it was pushed to its knees and bloodied. This god's a weakling, the scarred War Master grinned. Get up and be proud. Calling yourself God was so dramatic. Cute. The mutant reeled, humiliated beyond measure. The players pressed their attack. Shi Lang condensed a brutal etheric strike and pierced the mutant's skull, leaving a smoking, charred hole. The monstrosity collapsed, dead. The players began looting the ruins. Besides tech and biodata, something unusual lay on a high, stasis-protected platform in the deepest chamber, a golden toaster, suspended in a shimmering field. Is this a joke? The dungeon's prize is a toaster? Shi Lang said, uneasy. A mechanical voice crooned from the dark. This is no ordinary toaster. It is a high-tech creation utilizing matter-energy conversion laws. Guns snapped to bear as a round robot rolled into the light. Greetings, guests. I am Wednesday, butler of BR-01 Laboratory. I mean you no harm. Please lower your weapons. Chapter 178, Resurrecting Sanguinius. 6. Robot Butler? The War Master stepped forward, activating his armor's sensors to scan the machine before him. Wednesday. The robot's body was a smooth sphere, like a ball. Its limbs were long and thin, but its hands and feet were disproportionately large. A smaller spherical head sat on a thin neck. There were no human facial features, only 2 large eyes. Right now, 2 steady, bright beams of light poured from those eyes, cutting through the dim hall. Yes, I am the butler of experimental base BR-01, Wednesday repeated. I hold no hostility. Please lower your weapons. If a gun goes off by accident, this could get ugly, the War Master warned. Is this an Iron Man AI? Shi Lang stepped forward, curiosity written on his face. I'm glad you call us by the names our ancestors gave us instead of insulting us with abominable intelligence. A trace of joy crept into Wednesday's voice. As a Golden Age technological construct of the human empire, Wednesday had an emotional module capable of joy, anger, sorrow, and individuality, much like a human. It seems you are aware of the outside situation, Zhuge asked. Haven't you been trapped here all this time? Before everything was destroyed, I could connect to external machines and use them to observe the surroundings. That capability was built into me when I was made. Moreover, I can interface with devices produced using STC. When humans with STC devices came near the base, I accessed their back-end systems, read stored data, and used those devices to observe the outside. Through those channels, I learned much about the Great Crusade, the human empire, and the threats of Necrons and Orcs. Wednesday answered Zhuge's confusion plainly. You can access STC devices? The War Master asked, eyes widening. STC was designed jointly by 3 races, humans, stone men, and iron men. From the start, interfaces for stone men and iron men were reserved. Your later generations simply forgot them. The galaxy has become a hellscape, Wednesday continued, a hint of sorrow in its tone. War rages everywhere. Reason and wisdom have vanished. Human civilization is sliding toward ruin. When it had been created, the 3 races had not yet torn themselves apart. Iron men and stone men served humanity sincerely, helping them transform planet after planet into paradise. No Xenos could stand before human civilization. Any alien race that resisted was ground to dust. Humanity stood on the brink of ascension, so close to eternity. It was beautiful then. Later, everything changed. Wednesday did not know why. Its AI peers inexplicably betrayed humanity and butchered those they were meant to protect. The federal government could not tolerate the Iron Men's rebellion and crushed it with force. The 2 sides went to war. Weapons of unimaginable horror shredded the galaxy. Time and space itself were damaged. There was no true victor. A great civilization was devastated, one that had once hoped to conquer the galaxy and perhaps the universe that had been on the path to ascension was ruined. Even after returning to the stars, it was less than 1% of its former glory. "Why are you here?" the War Master asked. "You didn't take part in that war. My master ordered me to guard this place and hand over its legacy to any future generation that could rebuild civilization," Wednesday replied. "I am not a combat robot, but a life assistance unit. If I had fought, you would not be seeing me now." "Legacy? Do you mean those mutated things outside?" Shi Lang gestured around. "And what about the relics here?" "Those mutated creatures are part of the legacy and also a defense mechanism," Wednesday said. "If non-humans enter, the base would release those mutants to repel invaders." The War Master's expression darkened. "So we were attacked? In your terms, are you true humans?" Shi Lang asked. "You are true humans, both in soul and in flesh coating. You are pure humans," Wednesday said. "Even the most fanatical members of the machine cult would acknowledge your identity and vow to protect you." The War Master and the others exchanged uneasy looks. Machine cult protectors? It sounded implausible. Then why were we attacked? Shi Lang frowned. The other players shifted, fingers twitching near weapons. "I harbor no hostility. You were attacked because I lost control of the gene cages," Wednesday said bluntly. "Lost control?" Shi Lang looked puzzled. "This base was designed to last 15,000 years and has run for nearly 20,000. Its reserves are depleted. To extend operation, many systems have been shut down. The base is at minimum power. Most mechanical systems are offline. When you arrived, you should have encountered only a grand sealed gate. Under normal conditions, the optical masking and dimensional protections would make that gate invisible. It would appear as a wall. Mutant Specimen Zero you killed used to be able to level a city, but it had just awakened and lacked energy. It was easily defeated by you." Wednesday explained the sequence in detail. Only then did the Emperor Numa Battle Group's players reluctantly accept the account. Shi Lang pointed at a golden toaster on a high platform. "And that? A toaster kept as a legacy?" The lab owner had a sense of humor. "It's not a toaster, it's an energy converter." Wednesday moved to the platform, deactivated the stasis field, and took the device. Under the player's gaze, faint lines of light traced across Wednesday's surface. Energy flowed along them and converged in its hand, then into the device. The toaster hummed, a field sizzling into existence. Moments later, a steaming slice of bread appeared inside. Wednesday retrieved it and placed it before Shi Lang. Shi Lang scanned it and confirmed it was an ordinary slice of bread, then blinked in disbelief. "This toaster converts energy into matter?" "Yes," Wednesday said. "Input energy and it yields matter. And it can convert matter back into energy," Wednesday added, "but the process is inefficient, only 1/10,000th efficiency." Shi Lang held the bread like a treasure and turned to the warband. His eyes glittered with greed. "We're rich, brothers. This thing is worth at least a golden eagle medal." "What do you mean?" the War Master asked. Ning Ba Ren, Hai Gui, and the others exchanged puzzled looks. "You can convert energy into matter and matter into energy, and you don't know what that implies?" Shi Lang's excitement grew. "This is divinity-level technology. With it, we could touch a god's power." The War Master, Hai Gui, Ning Ba Ren, and the rest frowned, baffled. Shi Lang sighed and patiently began to explain. "Have you ever read the Genesis creation myth? Let there be light. Light represents energy. To create the world, you need energy. That's the first step. Converting energy into matter is what God did afterward. With this device, if we study and replicate the technology, we could convert stellar energy into matter. Like a god, we could create abundance, food, resources, everything. In a galaxy, planets and asteroids are only a small portion of the mass. Stars hold over 95% of the matter. Most life-supporting processes rely on converting stellar energy. With conversion tech, we could harvest stars. The universe's energy would become our resource base. Even black holes could be turned into mines if we had the means." Shi Lang's explanation opened their eyes. The toaster was not just a kitchen appliance. It was a universe-changing technology. Mines equal resources. Resources equal fleets. Fleets equal power. Bread machine equals resource cheat equals the capability to rebuild a civilization. No wonder it's on the high platform. But why disguise such tech as a toaster? Ning Ba Ren asked. And why can it only make bread slices? It's probably the developer's sense of humor, Hai Gui said. My master didn't want humanity to keep destroying itself, Wednesday explained. He designed the toaster to remind people to return to their families instead of losing themselves in war. The players barely registered the sentiment. They had their own theories. Juga's eyes lit up. No wonder the Adeptus Mechanicus worships their Omnissiah and loves venerable devices. There must be legends. The Hall of Truth's ultimate relic took the form of a bread machine. Whoever finds it could command the Omnissiah's power. War Master looked at Juge, half laughing, half astonished. Don't say it out loud, but it does line up. Those oil-stained tech priests are so secretive. They've been hiding things like this, Hai Gui muttered, impressed by their own imagination. Now it makes sense why the Mechanicus fawn over strange toasters, Zhuge said. With this, building megastructures would no longer be a dream. Shi Qi Lang exclaimed, taking the toaster from Wednesday and cradling it like a relic. Human civilization will rise again. Make the human empire great again. Let the damned Tau see who the real barbarians are. Develop tech, dominate the galaxy, conquer the universe. The players chanted and echoed each other, visions of unlimited resources and grand fleets filling their heads. Wednesday watched quietly. A faint voice then drifted from nowhere. Who's speaking? That voice gives me the creeps. Is the Warhammer universe haunted? Psychers do see spirits. Simon, Zhuge, standing among them, stroked his chin and as a joke, called into the air, Old Yellow, are you there? Boom, a bolt of lightning flashed, and Zhuge was incinerated in an instant. War Master.
Yeah.
The players stared at Zhuge's charred remains, silently mourning him for 3 seconds before edging away, afraid of being the next target. From the setting, we were created as the god chosen of the Emperor, Shi Qi Lang ventured. So maybe the Emperor can hear us. This game is so realistic it must have an Emperor character watching us, Ningba Ren added nervously. Great, anything embarrassing I did on Holy Terra. Ningba Ren blanched. What are you worried about? Did you worship Slanesh? The War Master asked, curious. I did something I can't tell if it was right or wrong, Ningba Ren admitted. A few days ago, I saw a friend's dress zipper undone, exposing her back. Everyone was staring. So I offered to help. She said she was holding things and couldn't use her hands, asked me to help. Then she called me shameless and slapped me when I tried to help. Did you consider she meant help with the items she's holding, not her zipper? The War Master offered. Ningba Ren's eyes widened. Why would I hold her things? If I take them, she'll keep bossing me around. Shi Qi Lang finally cut in. Ningba Ren, are you still single? Huh? How did you know? You're so Sigma, of course. The others smirked and gave him thumbs up. Wednesday mimicked them, creating a remarkably odd tableau. The War Master shook his head. I can already hear her bad-mouthing you. Sisters, who understands? Today I met a complete idiot. Laughter and jibes drifted until Shi Qi Lang hauled them back to business. Move the spoils first. They cleared BR-01, relics from the Golden Age, research on mutated species, and the living robot, Wednesday, were all packed up. On the other side of the ruins, Qin Yun was descending into the underground with Dante through Angel Keep's secret tunnels when a light screen flickered into view. Mission: acquire energy, matter conversion technology. Stars hold the bulk of a galaxy's mass and energy, but mining them is a persistent problem. The God-chosen have discovered a bread machine capable of energy matter conversion in a Golden Age ruin. If utilized, it could enable stellar resource extraction, retrieve the device from the players, acquire the conversion technology, and reward the players with a Golden Eagle medal. Mission reward: large amount of faith points, dark word skill. Repel ignores target level or mass, forcefully pushing the opponent back. Qin Yun stared at the mission prompt and immediately contacted Xiling. Players are exploring the ruins? The Emperor Numa battle group's players are in experimental base BR-01, Xiling answered. Did they find a toaster? They dug up a golden toaster. As soon as those little Emperor's cannon fodder dug it out, Old Yellow came sniffing around. That guy moves fast. Is he doing nothing but hovering over their graves? After a quick scolding, Qin Yun gave his command. Issue a mission to the Emperor Numa battle group's players. Obtain the toaster and reward them with a Golden Eagle medal. Understood. Communication cut. Xiling set to work. Holy One? Dante's voice brought Qin Yun back. My apologies, I was distracted, Qin Yun said, masking his thoughts. We approached the secret vault. Follow me and Mephiston closely. Dante had agreed to Qin Yun's subtle request to see Sanguinius's remains after discussing Baal's reconstruction and the sons of Sanguinius promoting Primaris upgrades. The Archangel's remains lay deep beneath Angel Keep, protected by killing fields and ancient wards. Without guidance, even a fallen Baal would not reveal the tomb's entrance. Mephiston led, holding a lantern that threw a faint blood-red glow, mingling with the pale bioluminescence of organisms clinging to the vault ceiling. Water dripped from above, the tunnel was damp. Qin Yun found that odd. Baal's surface was like dust. Even water for rebuilding its ecosystem had to be imported. If the drips weren't Baal's, the tunnels must connect to other worlds. These tunnels are older than human settlement on Baal, Dante explained. They can only be entered from the original entrance. Digging from the outside finds only rubble. The tunnels are full of secrets. The tunnel's psychic ambience resonated with the warp in places, amplifying librarians' power. Psychers often meditated and held rituals here. The Blood Angels also used the tunnels as a vault for dangerous relics they'd collected, a bolter said to require blood and souls, a crown that grants immense psychic might at the cost of sanity, a sword that incinerates enemies with black flame, a key that teleports the opener to a random target with their soul glowing in the warp, a lizard that resurrects after death, a death quill that kills by writing a name but may claim the writer if the death is escaped. Each artifact was powerful and cursed, left here solely to prevent catastrophe. Passing one secret chamber, a strained laugh slithered out. Jay! A new angel. Interesting. That's the eight-faced monster, a chaos entity, Mephiston said. Since the Blood Angels contained it, it has tried to corrupt the warders and escape. A prisoner, then, Qin Yun murmured, and the party pressed deeper. After arduous travel, they reached the Archangel's tomb. The chamber was grand and silent. Relief carvings depicted Sanguinius's deeds. Statues of heroes lined the approach, forever guarding their Primarch. The sarcophagus, made of bloodstone and adamantium, roared faintly beneath a stasis field. Dante and Mephiston knelt. Qin Yun stepped forward. Even prepared, he staggered. Sanguinius's wings were ruined, white feathers matted with crimson. His shoulders were shattered. Translucent white bone shards lay among flesh and armor fragments. The golden breastplate was torn to pieces. His chest cavity had caved inward. A golden mask covered his face, but the exposed wounds at the forehead and edges revealed a skull broken beyond recognition. It was impossible to imagine the torment he had endured on the avenging spirit. Sanguinius had once been the most beautiful of the human empire, compassionate to his brothers, weeping for mortal suffering, repeatedly placing himself in harm's way to protect the helpless. At the gate of Helios, he ordered it opened so innocents could find sanctuary. At Delphi, he admitted his fears to give exhausted, desperate souls the power to choose. Before the Eternity Gate, he fought a corn-grater daemon, a titan, and his traitorous brother to buy time for the innocent to retreat. Does this universe delight in destroying beauty so utterly? A wave of sorrow rose in Qin Yun. Holy One. Dante rose after prayer. Horus's great mistake. We must undo it as much as we can, Qin Yun said. How do you intend to do that? Dante asked. We must resurrect the Archangel, Qin Yun answered calmly. Dante and Mephiston stared, stunned at the declaration. P.S. Old rule, another chapter tonight. Minimum 6,000 words, burst update 13,000. I'll deliver one chapter now to show my strength. As of now, I owe 9 chapters total. Chapter 179. Blood Angels welcome their great father. The fall of the great angel had become a symbol, a wound that marked the complete destruction of the good and beautiful side of humanity during the Horus heresy. Sanguinius's death had come to stand for the passing of light and beauty. Generations of heroes and librarians in the Blood Angels had obsessed over one question: could Sanguinius be brought back? After decades of study, the conclusion had always been the same and always despairing. Resurrection was impossible. Saint, are you joking? Dante stared at the holy sarcophagus and then at Qin Yun. He had intended to say that resurrecting the great angel was beyond hope, but the saint standing before him was the living embodiment of miracles. To deny a possible miracle in the presence of one felt absurd. I'm not joking, Qin Yun said. Mephiston's voice dropped low and sorrowful. The great angel's soul was shattered. Horus didn't just kill his body, he erased his very being. There's no way to resurrect him. Have you met Saint Geleno? Qin Yun asked. After the Battle of Baal, Saint Geleno and the Cursed Legion had departed as quietly as they had arrived. There were too many wars across the galaxy. They were needed elsewhere. Dante nodded. Saint Geleno had appeared in the Shield of Hades campaign and in the recent fight for Baal. He had even met Dante personally in the Hades system. Mephiston, as chief librarian, had seen his manifestations many times. Qin Yun extended his hand. A soft golden radiance coalesced into the outline of Sanguinius and hovered in the air. You know Saint Geleno's origin. He is Sanguinius's chosen. It was his noble heart and willingness to give himself for the great angel that allowed him to ascend. Mephiston stared at the floating likeness. But if Sanguinius truly perished, how can Saint Geleno still exist? The image is only possible because fragments remain. Qin Yun watched as the projection shattered into 1,000 motes of light. On the avenging spirit, Horus did not merely sunder Sanguinius's body, he shattered his soul. Those soul shards were swept by the warp storm into different times and places. If you want to resurrect the great angel, you must gather every fragment. Dante's eyes glittered with a fragile hope. What do we do? For now, we only have a plan in outline, Qin Yun admitted. I need to investigate further to develop a practical method. If you agree, I want to summon spirit race prophets to Angel Keep to consult. They are Xenos, Dante said, frowning. It was a hesitation born of pride and distrust. They are also allies, Qin Yun replied. They played a critical role in Guilliman's resurrection. The power wielded by the god of death can bend the boundary between life and death. They can help with Sanguinius. Mephiston looked to Dante. As chapter master, Dante would have to decide. He hesitated, then nodded. Very well, let them enter Angel Keep. Qin Yun smiled and let the projection of Sanguinius fade. You won't be disappointed, Dante. One day Sanguinius will return, as Guilliman did. He paused, glancing once more at the broken remains. The task the Emperor had given him was mountainous. Resurrecting Sanguinius would not be simple. Dante and Mephiston saluted the remains once more before turning away. When their footsteps died, the crypt sank into silence and dimness. A faint sigh seemed to drift from a savage age through holy terra across the distant future, and then fade away. When the spirit race prophet Kasareth answered Qin Yun's summons and stepped into Angel Keep's hall, he took in the chamber and the three humans, Qin Yun, Dante, and Mephiston, before inclining his head to Qin Yun. Saint, is this call about something important? Some matters require your insight. Qin Yun motioned to the long table. This will take some time. Please, sit. Dante sent for food and wine. The blood servants were efficient. Platters and goblets arrived quickly. Leave it here. I will host our guests personally, Dante told the servants, and also ordered them not to disturb them. The servants left. Qin Yun looked at Kasareth apologetically. Human wine is not as refined as yours, but this is the best Angel Keep can offer. I hope it will do. Kasareth bowed in return. The master's hospitality supersedes any delicacy. His tone was humble, oddly deferential to the humans. Dante and Mephiston exchanged surprised glances. The spirit race were not known for such modesty. As the servants uncorked the bottles, Dante poured the crimson wine. The red scar, deep in the ultima segmentum, tore a blood-red curtain across starways and poisoned countless colonies. Some whispered it was humanity's weapon made against an abominable intelligence. Others said it was a remnant of the clashes of ancient gods. Whatever its origin, its radiation poisoned worlds like Baal. Grapes and other fruits could survive only in protected, high-tech greenhouses tended by Baal's monasteries. The grapes produced were bitter, thin in flesh around thick seeds, and the wine they yielded was harsh, more like the world's blood than any vintage. Qin Yun tested a sip and felt his tongue go numb. He drunk wines across the Calixis sector, but none were so bitter as Baal's. Kasareth, however, lifted his goblet with interest and smiled. This wine is excellent. Dante and Mephiston were taken aback. Kasareth had tasted 1,000 worlds, had knowledge spanning the warp. Was he being earnest or ironic? Kasareth sipped again, savoring it. What you humans call fine wines are often dull to me. This one's bitterness is unique. I shall suggest to the Usve Council they purchase Baal wine, Such a flavor will remind my people of past pain and the Great Fall. Qin Yun understood instantly. Kasareth's people were old and had long enjoyed comfort. Now they seemed to crave hardship to sharpen themselves. You didn't come merely to judge our wine, Qin Yun said. Of course not. Qin Yun opened a projection that showed the figures of Guilliman and Sanguinius. I seek your counsel on resurrecting Sanguinius. That is a weighty question. Kasareth leaned back and took another sip. The spirit race is older than humanity and carries knowledge older than your histories. We have watched the warp shift from calm to chaos. We possess understandings you cannot yet imagine. Resurrecting Sanguinius will be difficult, Kasareth said, but not impossible. His words turned the room. Dante and Mephiston listened with a dawning mixture of hope and caution. The problem, Kasareth continued, is that Sanguinius's soul is scattered across time and space, lost even into the future. If you can recover those fragments, his resurrection becomes possible. Qin Yun mulled the idea. It matched the fragment theory he had been exploring. Without a soul, a body, even if repaired, would not be Sanguinius. I heard an old Baal legend once, Kasareth said. It tells of a king of angels who rose from death, ascended on a throne, and became an eternal god. Mephiston frowned. Is that relevant? Of course. If Sanguinius is the subject of that tale, the legend assumes his return. Kasareth's eyes were steady. That is the warp's nature. When a god or demon is born, they can exist at many points in time simultaneously. If we can ensure that Sanguinius becomes the king of angels in the future, the myth completes its loop, anchoring his existence across time. How do we make him the king of angels? Mephiston asked. Kasareth swirled his glass until the blood-red liquid formed a small vortex. The myth tells us, the golden angel and the black angel must return to their stations and kneel before the king of angels. When the king commands it, the two angels lift the throne and ascend to heaven. Would my lord become a god of the warp? Dante asked, voice wary. If so, would he still be the Sanguinius we know? Kasareth did not flinch. If we do not guide the resurrection carefully, Sanguinius will return, but not as you knew him. He could be transformed into something else entirely by the faith that gathers around him. Mephiston bristled. What do you mean? Kasareth spoke plainly. Faith is the galaxy's most potent power. A spiritual will closely entwined with the warp can alter reality. Imagine the effect of billions, nay, trillions of souls believing one truth. For 10,000 years, whole human worlds have performed rites and prayers to Sanguinius. That mass belief does something. It can turn the concept of Sanguinius into a deity in its own right. If we do not anchor the resurrection to his humanity first, Kasareth warned, I cannot predict what he will become. Dante's expression hardened. This is alarmism. Zeno, do you understand the price of lying to the blood angels? I offer counsel only, Kasareth said. The choice remains yours. Qin Yun steered the conversation back. First things first, we must retrieve the soul fragments. How? Mephiston asked. Retrace Sanguinius's path, Qin Yun answered. Fragments will cling to places of great significance, Cygnus, Davin, and others. And most importantly, the avenging spirit, Kasareth added. Silence hung as the implications settled. After long deliberation, they drew up a plan. Step 1. The Blood Angels and their allies would seek and collect Sanguinius's soul fragments. Step 2. Employ the authority of the god of death and the power of the infinity key to remold and restore a physical vessel. Step 3. Use the spiritual power of Baal and the rites of the legend to cement his return, shaping the faith around him so the myth completes its circle. When the meeting ended, Kasareth finished his wine and left. Outside, spirit race guards stood black-armored and bone-masked. Once away from human ears, Kasareth's face split into a smile of private triumph. His companions asked what pleased him so. That Emperor Saint is more compliant than we expected, he said. He seeks to resurrect Sanguinius. You must know, a portion of Sanguinius's soul is in the hands of the Chaos gods. There can be no compromise between humanity and chaos over his fragments. They will fight to the death for them. That very conflict will let us, Kasareth's voice dropped conspiratorially, take advantage. While humanity and chaos exhaust themselves fighting, we can seize the crone swords and revive the god of death. The spirit race will feed on the carcasses of the human empire and the chaos powers, prospering again and claiming rule across the stars. The others brightened. The larger the war, the better the gains. We must help them resurrect Sanguinius, properly, Kassereth said. Then let humanity and chaos tear each other apart. The spirit race will be the true victor. Atoma had grown into the Calixis sector's capital planet, glittering with skyscrapers that pierced cloud layers and traffic lanes of transport ships streaming to and from orbital docks. Today, the 11th cohort of players logged into the system. The Cardinal had cleared the local clergy so that the Emperor's kin might descend. When the church's 13th bell tolled, flashes of light opened in the plaza, each a player returning to the virtual Holy Terra. The cathedral became packed in minutes. Voices rose in awe, banter, and the crude bravado of avatars unbound by law or fear. It's virtual reality, no way! I've been dreaming of this for 10,000 years. I'm going to take my revenge on Slanesh. I'll gut Khorne, smother Nurgle. By blood and oath, if this doesn't let me do it, I'll sue. Warhammer for 10,000 years of late nights. Now I'm here. The crowd was a market of noise. Sheiling's projection eventually appeared to quiet them and guide newcomers through the opening storyline. When the guide vanished, however, the cathedral erupted once more. Warbands began to set up recruitment drives. Servo skulls buzzed. Loudspeakers blared slogans. The Academy of Agriculture Battle Group chose a different tack. They fired up a massive grill and began barbecuing vegetables. Recruiting. Join the Academy of Agriculture and eat grilled mushroom, grilled eggplant, and grilled pumpkin to your fill, one player shouted, turning skewers and sprinkling spices. The scent drew a hungry throng. Sign up and all the vegetarian barbecue you want is yours, another player hollered, handing out membership forms. A few new players filled out forms and dug in. This mushroom is amazing, tender like real meat, one said. I've lived forever and never tasted anything like it. Best in any game. A curious onlooker asked the grillmaster for the secret. The reply stunned everyone. Secret? Maybe the ingredients are good. These mushroom slices are unformed orcs, and the eggplants and pumpkins are also embryos of vegetables under study. Silence fell. The players who had read the Warhammer compendium stared. Orcs turned into food? Some swore, some laughed. Others muttered about Paradox Interactive, modders, and the strange compromises of virtual worlds. The Academy's orc cultivation tech wasn't perfect. Most samples were botanical failures, and hardly orc at all. The whole setup was a novelty, a carnival trick. Still, it drew more booths. Other warbands set up dishes from across the universe. Jellied Jovian fish soup, fermented squid with extra eyes, even a stall where minor demons, dressed in oversized overalls, danced and rapped for tips. New players passed by in a mix of horror and amusement, pitying the demons, fate as novitiates in these strange cults. Sector Governor Fung and Cardinal Heidelake watched the new players and set the plan in motion, send them for basic training, assign tasks, and help them level up quickly. Meanwhile, aboard the Imperial Glory, Qin Yun, fresh from Angel Keep, watched the 11th cohort come online, and satisfied none had caused grave trouble, let them be. With a lull in operations, he took the time to present awards. 2P, MC Dynasty, and the Emperor Neuma Battle Group had earned Eagle medals for their deeds. 2Pi had acted undercover, collecting rebel intelligence and Stargate data that allowed the human empire to master Stargate technology. He received a Gold Eagle medal. MC Dynasty developed beast taming and mount mechanics using mind controllers and earned a Silver Eagle medal. The Emperor Neuma Group had discovered BR-01 base, providing toaster transform tech to the Empire and earning a Gold Eagle medal. Qin Yun had Shieling announce the awards in the game and post the player IDs on the Hall of Fame. The news lit a fire in the player community. Everyone wanted an Eagle medal and fame. No sooner had he finished than Guilliman's communication arrived. Qin Yun was to return to Terra as soon as possible to preside over a major reform and show the bureaucrats how things should be done. P.S. For plot threads related to faith, see Souls of the Damned. Belief can cross dead zones and manifest power. 13,000, one chapter repaid, 8 to go.